Now, I've tried this one myself too. Pinch your elbow as hard as you can. You barely feel pain. How come? Well, different areas of your skin have different nerve endings. Our bodies are designed to be more sensitive to pain in places that are at higher risk of getting damaged. Those important parts have more nerve endings so that we're more alert and able to protect ourselves. And thick skin, like that on elbows, has fewer pain detectors. Now, I'm not talking about the tingling, jolting pain you can feel when you hit your elbow against something. Oh, that feels almost like your entire arm has been electrocuted. It's not a feeling I would consider funny, but it comes from the funny bone. Now, the funny bone isn't actually a bone. It's a nerve that starts in your spine, goes through your neck, through your elbow, and through your fingers. Its real name is the ulnar nerve. It's one of the 3 primary nerves in your arm, and it provides sensation to the fingertips. Your ulnar nerve is well protected by muscle, fat, and bone. But there's one spot at your elbow where this nerve is exposed, and that spot is, the funny bone. A different but real version of Achilles' story, huh? Okay, so now you know why it hits so different when you bump your funny bone and why you feel nothing when you pinch your elbow. Now, the next phenomenon is related to socially awkward moments. Okay, maybe not entirely. It might happen when your crush gives you a compliment. I'm talking about blushing. Now, I'm not sure those butterflies in your stomach exist when you're in love. But I'm sure of this, when you blush, your stomach lining also turns red. Yeah, I've looked. The stomach lining is the tissue that protects your stomach walls from the acid inside. When you blush, it also turns red because blushing happens when the blood rises to the surface of the skin. This affects the stomach too. Now, this is a natural process, a physiological response to the change in your emotions. Now, since we're talking about the stomach, it might be a good time to mention that the stomach fluid has the ability to melt a steel table. Yup. This means the acid would be able to digest your internal organs. Luckily, the stomach lining prevents this from happening. Number 3 is about letting you know that you can glow in the dark. Now, don't turn off the lights just yet, you can't see it with the unaided eye. These visuals of glittering human bodies come from ultra-sensitive cameras. Japanese scientists were the first to capture the images of human bioluminescence. Only ultra-sensitive cameras can reveal that our bodies emit tiny amounts of light, because this light is 1,000 times weaker than the human eye can detect. Apparently, all living creatures produce a small amount of light thanks to the chemical reactions in their cells. Humans are newly added to this list. The researchers had been photographing the upper bodies of the volunteers for several days. The results showed that the amount of emitted light followed a 24-hour cycle. The glow is at its highest in late afternoon and lowest late at night. Plus, the brightest light is emitted from the cheeks, forehead, and neck. Interestingly, this does not correspond with the brightest areas caught by thermal cameras. Did you know you're a little bit taller in the morning than you are later at night? Yes, I've been measuring you. Seriously, this height difference is related to gravity. Its force compresses the cartilage in your spine and knees when you stand up or sit down throughout the day. But when you're lying down, your spine decompresses and relaxes. That's why when you wake up in the morning after resting in bed all night, you're taller. The increase in height is not even above an inch, so don't bet on who is taller after hearing this information. Fun fact, astronauts returning from a mission are a few inches taller than they usually are on Earth. It's because of the lack of gravity on the International Space Station. They don't remain that tall forever, though. When they're on the Earth again, gravity gradually squeezes them back down to their usual height. Now, let's get back to the organ we've already spoken about, the skin. Yes, the skin is an organ. In fact, it's the largest organ in your body. It contributes to about 15% of your body weight. What else does this organ do besides covering your body? It performs vital functions. For instance, it protects your body from external physical and biological harm. Plus, it prevents excessive water loss. Now, I can't help wondering what other surprises the human body has in store for us. But right now, let's move on to the animal planet. Owls don't have eyeballs. Instead, they have something called eye tubes. Their rod-shaped eyes do not move in their sockets as our eyeballs do. That's why owls would have to move their entire bodies to look around. But moving their torsos would make some noise, and other animals would hear it. So owls have evolved to have necks that can twist to around 270 degrees, and they move super silently. But why the concern? Well, night vision requires large corneas to get as much light as possible. This is the main reason why most nocturnal animals, such as the slow loris or tarsier, have big eyes. For owls, it works a little differently. Since they have small heads, such large eyes wouldn't be able to fit inside. Now, even though these creatures don't have eyeballs, they have 3 sets of eyelids. One set is for blinking, one is for sleeping, and the last one is for keeping their eye tubes clean. So, do the owls give a hoot about that? Yes, they do. Moving on from nocturnal animals to the ones you're more familiar with. Meow. Cats have an extra organ that allows them to taste scents in the air. This organ is called Jacobson's organ, or the vomeral nasal organ. Jacobson's organ is located inside the cat's nasal cavity and opens into the roof of the mouth. This organ can detect specific chemicals by using nerves that lead directly to the brain. That's not a regular sniffing, though. The odor receptors of Jacobson's organ aren't designed to catch ordinary smells. They detect chemicals that have no odor at all. In other words, cats can detect undetectable smells. It's not just this. Jacobson's organ increases the sense of smell. For instance, when kittens need to find their mother's milk, imagine there are 2 mother cats and 4 kittens. Kittens can distinguish their mother from the other grown-up cat with the help of their sense of smell. Now, when 2 people meet, they assess each other's body language. Cats can usually do this by sniffing each other's heads. This greeting releases pheromones that can tell a lot about one cat to the other, like what the other feline likes to eat or if they are healthy or not. They can even evaluate whether the other cat is happy or moody, all thanks to Jacobson's organ. Now, another fact about cats. Their nose has distinct ridges that look like a pattern. Similar to our fingerprints, every cat has a unique nose print. It can be used as a form of identification. Okay, cat, we can nail you for breaking the vase. We have your nose prints all over it. Now, do you want to cut a deal? Just tell us what you know about the dog and that chewed-up DVD. Dog lovers? No, I didn't forget about you. Here's a myth you've probably heard. Dogs are colorblind. But they aren't. However, it is true that the color range they can detect is limited compared to the spectrum humans can see. Their color palette consists mostly of yellows, blues, and violets. Our reds, greens, and oranges are not noticeable to them. Now this one is about turtles. These animals cannot leave their shells and get back whenever they want. In fact, they are completely attached to their shells. These shells grow with turtles, similar to the human skin. A turtle's shell consists of 50 bones. It also includes a skeleton with the spine and rib cage. So, they go on vacation with it. It's kind of like an RV that you can't get rid of.
The heart continues beating on its own for around 3 minutes after being separated from its owner. It occurs because of a phenomenon called self-excitation, when something generates its own energy. When we appear in this world, we have 300 bones, but with time, some of them fuse, leaving us with around 206 bones. And still, some have extra bones in their skull structures. Those are Wormian bones, which are basically extra bone pieces found within the joints of the skull. If you laid flat the respiratory tubes in the lungs, they would cover an area as large as a tennis court, all thanks to 33 generations of branching. The brain is as cool as the lungs. It has 86 billion neurons, nerve cells that send messages all over your body and allow you to do everything from breathing to talking, eating and thinking, or doing sports. The brain also has up to 60 trillion synapses, the places where neurons connect and communicate with one another. That's more than all the leaves on all the trees in the world. And here's another fun fact. Your eyes are like car engines. They need fluids to function properly, just like an engine needs gasoline. So when you blink up to 20,000 times a day, you're basically giving your eyes a windshield wash. Have you ever blushed and felt your cheeks turn red? Well, did you know that your stomach lining can blush too? When you blush, there's an increased blood flow in your body, and that includes your stomach lining. It turns red because it has plenty of blood vessels, and when there's more blood than usual, it shows. Now, we all know that plastic is bad for the environment, but did you know that we can actually digest it in tiny quantities? However, our digestive system can't handle grass. Grazing animals have special teeth and several stomachs to process raw leaves and grass, while we're stuck with just one stomach. We all have two super fast muscles that control our eyelids closing. They're actually the fastest muscles in our body, and they shut our eyes within a mere 0.1 second when triggered. And while we still don't know why we blink, we do know that women blink more often than men, and that we tend to blink in unison when watching a movie with friends. Maybe it's just a weird human thing. By the way, every time you eat something, your esophagus, the organ your food travels through to reach the stomach, moves in a series of wave-like contractions, pushing the food forward. This process is called peristalsis. Your fingers don't have any muscles whatsoever. To move them, you involve tendons connected to muscles in your hands and forearms. Some people, around 12% of women and almost no men, have 4 cones in their eyes. This condition is called tetrachromacy. People with this peculiarity can see a whopping 100 million colors. Your body glows, emitting tiny amounts of barely visible light, the product of biochemical reactions going on in your organism. The light intensity changes throughout the day. Unfortunately, you can't detect it with the unaided eye. Marfan syndrome is a genetic condition that affects the body's connective tissues, making them more elastic. This can make you unusually tall, have elongated limbs, and often be extremely flexible. And some people use this as an advantage in their careers. Javier Botet was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome at a young age, but he made a name for himself in the horror film industry. He can contort his body in such an eerie and unsettling way that this has landed him roles in numerous films such as Mama, The Conjuring 2, It, and Slender Man. But Marfan syndrome is a spectrum disorder. While some people with the condition can live relatively normal lives, others may face serious health issues. The DEC2 gene mutation is a mutation that allows people to have just a few hours of sleep a night and still feel great. They don't get tired and never sleep in. On average, such people wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. No more than 5% of the world's population has this feature. Human embryos, the initial stage of development for a multicellular organism, have a tail, and it usually disappears before birth, leaving us with a tailbone. In the future, this structure will probably vanish altogether since it has no apparent purpose. People lose 30 to 40,000 skin cells every minute. It adds up to 43 to 57 million skin cells per day. But worry not. The epidermis, the top layer of your skin, replaces itself every 30 days or so. If this process happens faster, it can lead to skin flaking and irritation. The liver is a unique organ. It can regenerate after 60 to 70% is removed. At the same time, its shape may change afterward. It might sound like something out of a comic book, but humans can actually have super strength. Turns out, some accidental mutations can unleash titanic strength without any crazy workout routines. There are 2 proteins in our body, myostatin and activin A, that usually are secreted by muscle cells to suppress excessive growth. In other words, these 2 help regulate the size and number of your muscle cells, so you don't end up accidentally looking like Schwarzenegger. But as you can guess, some do end up like that. People with this genetic condition don't produce these proteins. Without hitting the gym, they can naturally grow their muscles extraordinarily large, resulting in super strength. It's called myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy. Sounds kinda dangerous, right? And it is. When you become a Superman, there's also the risk of muscle imbalance, heart and joint issues, and other problems. When you swallow, it takes the food from 5 to 8 seconds to travel from the mouth down to the stomach. Your eyes have 3 kinds of cones: red, blue, and green. Thanks to them, you can perceive around 1 million colors. Your hard-working heart will beat around 2.5 to 3 billion times and pump approximately 100 million gallons of blood in your lifetime. Speaking of your skull, It isn't a solid structure. It consists of 22 bones. 8 of them protect the brain and 14 form the facial skeleton. And since we're on the topic of the human head, the part of your brain that's responsible for vision is in the back of your head. Interestingly, the right side of your brain controls the vision on the left side, and vice versa. Breathing isn't only about moving the air inside and outside. It's about the way you do it, because it can literally affect your face shape. If you breathe through your nose, you'll get well-defined cheekbones over time. It will also make your face wider because your tongue will exert force against your jaw. If you breathe through your mouth, your tongue won't have a place to rest. It will change your facial structure as time goes by. Your face can be more narrow and your cheekbones won't be that visible. Also, if you're a mouth breather, you'd probably tend to tilt your head backwards more. This way, you increase cranial contents in the back part of your brain and directly change your entire posture, along with the shape of your neck and face. It's possible to taste your food without saliva. That's because the chemicals in your food must be dissolved in saliva before they get detected by your taste buds. By the way, each of your taste buds works as a mini-computer. It consists of up to 100 cells that analyze taste information. Anyway, speaking of food, eating too many carrots can indeed make your skin orange because of the high amount of beta-carotene this vegetable contains. If you have too much of this compound in your bloodstream, it'll gather in parts of your body with thicker skin, such as the soles of your feet, knees, elbows, palms, and even certain areas around your nose. But you can easily reverse this condition by eating fewer carrots. The chin muscles, aka the mentalis muscles, look like creepy, tiny tentacles. And still, they make it possible for you to create different facial expressions involving the lips, chin, and cheeks. Your small intestine is actually not so small. It's taller than you are, measuring from 9 to 16 feet. The cornea, that transparent front cover on your eyes, doesn't have any blood supply. It receives oxygen directly from the air. Our lungs are the only organs that can float on the water. All because they're made up of around 300 million balloon-like structures called alveoli. Your bones are 4 times harder than concrete. The strongest bone in your body is the femur. It can support up to 30 times the weight of a grown-up person. Even crazier is that our bones are made up of composite material, meaning they're both hard and elastic at the same time. The outer layer of your skin is thicker on your feet than on other parts of your body. The heart has its own electrical system and can continue beating even when it's disconnected from the body. The average lifespan of one eyebrow hair is 4 months. We spend 40% of our life with our eyes closed. Most of that time is when we're sleeping, but don't forget to count blinking too, or while driving. In an adult, the blood makes up 7 to 8% of the total body weight. About 55% of your blood is liquid plasma. The rest is red and white blood cells and platelets. They form clots and prevent bleeding. The density of your brain increases throughout your whole life, all because new neural connections pop up. And they appear because the structure of your brain keeps changing too. The same process of changing will occur to your feet too. They're likely to become bigger with time. When people grow older, ligaments and tendons in their feet weaken. This makes the arches flatter and feet become wider and longer. People who live to be 110 years and older have more immune cells, called T helpers, than the average person. These cells are likely to protect them from viruses and other health problems. The human brain is sometimes called a random thought generator for a reason. More than 48 thoughts appear in your brain in just 1 minute. It's almost 3,000 thoughts per hour and 69,000 per day. You know these before and after makeovers? Well, if you saw a pic of an average human who lived about 1 million years ago, compare it to a pic of an average human who lives today, you'd be astonished. And get this, it's a makeover performed by Mother Nature. Like back in the day, the earliest human species were basically tiny with long arms and short legs. They needed a big digestive tract to handle all those plants they were chowing down on, and their rib cages were super wide to make room for all the organs breaking down their food. Time went by and some of these humans started adapting to hot climates, and they all got narrow and leggy to stay cool. They started eating meat and other quick-to-digest foods, which meant they could have smaller digestive tracts and use more energy for their tall bodies and big brains. And when humans spread to colder climates, they evolved short, wide bodies to conserve heat, but they still loved their raw meat and cooked food, which could be easily processed in a short digestive tract. Check out this skeleton of an 8 to 9-year-old Homo erectus kid from East Africa. He was already 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighed 106 pounds. If he had grown up, he could have been almost 6 feet tall. His lean body was perfect for hot, dry environments. And then there were the Neanderthals, who were only about 5 foot 4 inches tall on average. They had short, broad bodies that were great for dealing with winter cold and even ice ages. Speaking of the brain, it can decide what sounds to focus on when you're in a loud place. Thanks to this ability, you can shut out all other voices and concentrate on the person you're listening to. In most cases, hiccups are harmless and resolve by themselves within a couple of minutes. But if you want to avoid this condition, you should know that it might occur because of temperature changes. There's a bond between your digestive system and your brain, the gut-brain axis. This is the main reason why stress or brain issues can affect the way your body digests food. These days, humans have softer diets and, consequently, smaller jaws. That's why wisdom teeth aren't really necessary, and around 20% of people don't have all 4 of them. The vomeronasal organ helps some animals detect pheromones. Some have vestigial VNO too, but it's mostly non-functional and is likely to disappear with time. You flex that strong handshake and think it's all because of your gym grind? Ha! Turns out your pinky finger is the real MVP. No joke! Believe it or not, that little finger packs a punch and is responsible for 50% of your hand strength. Who knew the underdog could be such a powerhouse? Your toes are like 2 little homies that carry almost half of your body weight. And don't even listen to people who say you don't need them. Your toes are the most important guys when it comes to walking and pushing you forward. Our hair color is easily explained by genes. There are not more than 2% of people with natural red hair. They're followed by blondes, about 3%, and by all the varieties of brown shades, only about 11%. The vast majority goes to black hair, including very dark brown. Who knew that nails had a secret talent besides helping us pick up tiny objects and peel off stickers? They also give us a structure to press against so we know how firmly to hold anything. Talk about multi-talented. Move over, Rapunzel. It's not just our hair and nails that can grow. Our liver can regenerate itself from just 51% of its original size back to full size. But don't go damaging it too much, or you'll end up with scars. In the future, people are likely to change due to extensive use of technology. So we might have text claws, cramping from gadget use, and 90-angle elbows from holding our devices. Besides, there's a theory that humans are likely to get smaller to conserve energy in our increasingly crowded world. Your body maintains a very careful water balance, and if it loses just 1% of water, you start feeling thirsty. Your brain can process up to 1,000 words per minute while you're reading. Rapid eye movements, saccades, help us absorb information more quickly. As for your tongue, together with your lips and teeth, it allows you to say more than 90 words per minute using over 20 various movements. Your body constantly converts food into energy. 1 calorie is equal to around 4,200 joules. And that's how much you need to change the temperature of 2.2 pounds of water by 1 Kelvin. People have as many hairs on their bodies as chimpanzees. The only difference is that human body hair is mostly useless and so fine that it's almost impossible to see. Who would have thought that tomatoes have more genes than humans? But don't worry, it's not the number of genes that matters, it's how they all work together. So go ahead and enjoy that tomato sauce on your pizza. Hold your nose the next time you eat and see how much your taste buds fade. It turns out that the nose is actually responsible for 75 to 95% of our taste perception. So don't underestimate the power of those sniffers. Keep your mouth hydrated or your taste buds won't work properly. Saliva triggers chemical reactions with enzymes that break down the food as soon as it enters your mouth. So drink up and savor those flavors. Forget about distinguishing between 10,000 smells. Recent research shows that we can actually differentiate between over 1 trillion smells. And not only that, but smells can evoke some distant memories too. So next time you catch a whiff of something familiar, take a moment to reminisce. When you're snoozing away, your sense of smell goes on vacation too. So even if your room smells like a dumpster fire, you won't even notice it. Sweet dreams, right? And speaking of dreams, did you ever wonder why some of them are in black and white, while others are like a rainbow explosion? Well, apparently it all depends on the TV you watched as a kid. So I guess your grandparents had some pretty boring dreams, huh? Chromesthesia is seeing colors when you're listening to music. It's a kind of synesthesia, a phenomenon when people have several senses mixed. Some of them perceive numbers in different colors. Others can taste words. People have more than 5 basic senses. Don't forget about the sense of space, the sense of pain, the sense of balance and time, the sense of temperature around and in the body, and many others. Your teeth are the only part of your body that can't repair itself, but the enamel which covers them is one of the toughest things in the human body. After growing several human taste cells in the lab, scientists found out that they had an ability to smell. In each of them, there were a few molecules similar to the ones found in the cells in your nose. Apparently, our senses of smell and taste are even more connected than we thought before. Now let's talk about listening to your heart. Not only is it a great metaphor for following your dreams, but it can also give you away if you're lying. Yeah, your heart rate starts racing like Usain Bolt when you're fibbing. Okay, brace yourself for this one. Even if you brush your teeth like a champ and use mouthwash like it's going out of style, your mouth is still a germ hotspot. Gross, right? But don't worry, most of those bacteria are actually good for us and keep the bad stuff away. But wait, there's more. The belly button is actually the second dirtiest place on our bodies. Yeah, I know, who knew? Since we don't really use it after we're born, it becomes a breeding ground for all kinds of icky stuff. It's got over 2,300 bacterial species living in there. So maybe it's time to give our belly button some extra TLC. You wake up 100 years from now and things are weird. Your body feels different. You check the mirror and, yup, it's true. You've got a second eyelid and no body hair? Sounds like sci-fi, but nope. There's actual science behind it. Think about how often you check your phone. A lot, right? Well, this might be why you have that second eyelid now. As screens took over our lives, we evolved this extra eyelid to filter out harmful blue light and reduce eye strain. Future you blinks and a translucent shield covers your eyes. It's like nature's way of protecting us from all that digital glare. Downside? We all look a bit more like robots. Now, Americans spend about 7 hours a day on the internet. Some researchers took this info and ran with it. Meet Mindy, the 3D model of humans 100 years from now. She's got the lowdown on what constant phone checking and endless office hours have done to us. Mindy's got an arched back, a thicker skull, a smaller brain, a 90-degree elbow, and something called a text claw. That doesn't feel right, does it? All those hours looking down at your phone strain your neck muscles and mess with your spine. But the text claws, that's next level weird. This mutation comes from always holding your smartphone. And those elbows? Permanently bent at 90 degrees, like some kind of stiff Barbie doll. Imagine trying to navigate crowded streets, bumping into people left and right. And body hair? We might lose it all in the future, but this is actually a pretty mysterious subject. Let's rewind the tape a bit. You've probably heard that body hair was used to protect us from harsh weather. One thing scientists have discovered is that our ancestors that started shedding hair had some pretty good advantages. The ones who lost the hair on their palms or wrists could handle stone tools and machinery way better than the other ones. There's also a famous theory known as the aquatic ape theory, which explains one reason for that. Like hippos and dolphins, we turned off the genes that produce fur. This idea suggests that our human ancestors that lived on the savannas of Africa migrated to oases during drier seasons. During these seasons, they hunted in shallow waters, and well, it turns out that hair is not a very good insulator in water, so our species lost their fur and developed a layer of fat. The question remains, in the future, will we deactivate these genes altogether and become totally hairless? Guess we'll have to wait and see. Geneticists are worried about something big: humans becoming too alike. There's a scientific risk of human alikeness or grand averaging. Open any social media app and you'll see it. Everyone dresses the same, talks the same, yada yada. But this sameness could halt human evolution. Evolution depends on genetic differences and passing them on. Over time, these differences should change the population. If the changes are big enough, a new species arises. But the three components needed for evolution, variation, natural selection, and geographic isolation, are pretty much fading away. Scientists call humans a single genetic continent, mixing and no longer breeding within cultural or ethnic groups. Given enough time, we might all start to look more alike. Here's a good one. Humans will develop to live longer, much longer than we do now. All along our evolution, we've been subject to external factors that determined our lifespan. Back in the Stone Ages and stuff, we were subject to dangerous predators or the encounter with other tribes other than ours that could harm us. As people would normally pass away at quite a young age, they had little room to develop important mutations. But when humans' mortality rates are lowered, the opposite happens. In the past 2 centuries, life expectancy soared to 70 years worldwide. The constant scientific development leads us to think humans might naturally evolve to live an average life of 100 years and more. Our lazy lifestyles are messing with our spines. We might end up with fewer vertebrae and shorter, bendier backs, making back pain less of a pain and perfect for our desk jobs. Future humans could be total slouchers, with standing tall becoming super rare. You know, all this talk is making me want to go for a walk. Since we're talking about lifestyle, we need to talk about food. All the processed soft foods we're eating are changing how we chew. Back in the day, when our bodies were taking form, we used to eat raw meat and plants. A study actually shows that the lower jaw reflected whether a population was primarily a hunter-gatherer or agriculturalist in nature. About 7 million years ago, our ancestors had long jaws and a face that projected forward. What do our jaws reflect about us now that our food is so soft? Some predictions say that 100+ years from now, humans might have smaller mouths with fewer teeth and weaker jaws. This also means that our faces will be smaller, without much chin. Our jaws tucked in a wee bit more. Pollution isn't just bad for the planet, it's changing us too. Future generations might get bigger nostrils and better lungs to deal with bad air quality. Imagine humans with super-powered breathing systems, thriving in polluted environments. Breathing in the future will be a whole new ballgame. These predictions might sound wild, but they're based on scientific theories. As our environment and lifestyles change, so will our bodies, in fascinating and terrifying ways. Next time you look in the mirror, remember you're seeing the human body as it is today, but who knows what it'll look like tomorrow? Embrace the mystery of our evolving selves. Humans might lose their palmaris longus muscle, that tiny tendon in your wrist that many people don't even realize they have. It's pretty much the appendix of muscles, completely unnecessary. As we evolve, we'll likely say goodbye to this little tendon because we're not swinging from trees or doing intense grip exercises anymore. Our hands are occupied with texting, typing, and swiping. So in a few generations, we might look at our smooth, tendon-free wrists and think, evolution really Marie Kondo'd our muscles. Love your toes much? Well, then you can bid one of them farewell. Our toes help us keep our balance when we're walking. Research shows that our balance is shifting inwards. If our ancestors used to rely on all their toes for balance, we ourselves don't use all of them as much. This means that we'll need our pinky toes less and less. And if this trend keeps up, it won't be long before we bid them goodbye. Okay, so there's something called directed evolution, which literally means science replacing nature. Instead of leaving it to the hands of destiny or fate, why not decide our own future? We kind of already do that when we choose a partner out of appearance or personality traits. For thousands of years, hunter-gatherers arranged marriages seeking good hunters for their daughters. But I'm talking about stuff done in laboratories. From now onwards, we have the power to control the genes of our offspring. Science can screen for genetic mutations. It can also choose an embryo with a particular eye color and things like that. Yep, DNA control is a thing of the future. If you think it doesn't get more bizarre than that, wait for this. Someone asked an AI to mock up some pictures of what humans will look like 1,000 years from now. According to this AI software, our faces will be covered in a web of wiring motors. It's like a crossover between Frankenstein and the Terminator. Perhaps this is the beauty standard of the future. Yikes! Meet Graham. Graham is a distant descendant of humanity whose body has evolved to survive a car crash. He isn't a CG model. He's a life-size statue made of silicon and real human hair. Graham is a piece of modern art. He's a speculation of what human bodies look like in the years ahead. Graham was created for a road safety campaign, but this artist depicts hyper-realistic humanoids in many different forms, even possible hybrids between humans and other species. It looks pretty weird at first. But I mean, at this rate, anything seems possible for our collective future.
So, when a woman is pregnant, her brain goes through many changes that prepare her for childbirth. And the part of her brain that's responsible for social signals decreases. This causes the brain to be more efficient at taking care of the baby. But don't worry, it doesn't stay that way. It returns to its standard size after the pregnancy. In a day, your body produces 2 pints of saliva. That's around 80 gallons a year. And in one lifetime, yes, you can fill 2 Olympic pools with spit. Imagine swimming in one. That's disturbing and disgusting at the same time. Humans have one secret superpower hidden in our stomachs, our stomach acid. It has a pH of around 1, and it is one of the most acidic substances in the world. It's so powerful that it can dissolve metals, and the stomach must develop special protective mucus to prevent your whole body from dissolving. But don't try to eat metals, they can be toxic. If you take a big breath, your left lung will be filled with much less air than your right one because it's smaller. Your heart takes up quite a bit of space, so the left lung has to make room for it. The lungs are divided into lobes. The right has 3, and the left lung has only 2 lobes. Your lungs aren't the only organs that are not proportional in size. Your kidneys are also a bit different. The left one is typically a bit larger than the right one. If you've ever wondered how big they are, your kidneys are the size of your fist. Everyone knows that sharks have strong teeth, but the outer layer of our teeth, called enamel, is as strong as the one covering sharks' teeth. The enamel is also the strongest substance in the body. It protects our teeth from all kinds of damage, so you can eat your favorite food in peace, like pizza. Now, toenails grow twice as slowly as fingernails, or at half speed, whichever one you like. And if there was an Olympic sport determining which nail grows the fastest, well, your pinky nail would always come in last because it is the slowest growing nail out of them all. The reason for this is that some fingers aren't used as much as others and don't have as much blood supply. There are weird animals like shrimp and crabs that drop their skeletons in order to grow. Don't be shocked to learn that we do the same thing. Now, we don't literally drop our skeleton, of course, but we slowly regenerate a new one every 10 years. So, in our whole life, we will change our skeleton around 8 times. Many years ago, we were reptiles like the evil lizard from Spider-Man. Luckily, we've evolved and lost almost all of our reptile features except the third vestigial eyelid, which is partially visible at the end of your eye close to your nose. Reptiles still have this. It is used to protect and clean the eye. If you have polychoria, your eye can develop more than one pupil. Sadly, this won't improve your vision. It can make it worse, in fact, but in most cases, it won't affect your vision much. This condition is super rare and typically starts in childhood, but it can also develop later in life. Dermatographia is a usually harmless condition that allows you to virtually write on your skin. People who have this condition don't need notebooks to keep notes. If you have this condition and you scratch your skin lightly, the redness can last for half an hour. This might be helpful at your next exam, if you know what I mean. Another unique condition that some people have is syndactyly, or webbed toes. This is when your toes are fused together. Nobody knows what causes this, but it's nothing serious. Did you know that your tongue is as unique as your fingerprints? Yeah, me neither. The tongue has special shapes and geometric figures, like fingerprints, that differ from person to person. Who knows? Maybe we'll unlock our phones by licking them in the future. Or not. A fully grown person is made up of around 7 octillion atoms. It sounds unreal, but it's true. That number is so big that I can't even say it in one breath. It's 7 followed by 27 zeros. Now, earwax looks like wax, feels like wax, and tastes like… Of course, I have no idea what it tastes like, and please don't try to find out. My point is, it's not actually wax. It's a combination of fat, skin cells, dirt, and sweat. It's important for the health of the ears because it helps keep them clean. Now, pound for pound, bones are much stronger than steel. The same density of bone will almost always outperform steel. But if you compare the same volume of bone and steel, the bone will break before the steel does. Bones are made to be light and strong. If they were made of steel, we'd be a lot heavier and would need much more energy to move. When you were born, you had more bones than you do now, because most of them have fused together. An adult person has 206 bones, while babies have 300 bones. Some of those bones are made of cartilage, which is flexible and soft. The strongest, heaviest, and longest bone is the femur. This bone is the most difficult to break. It can take up to 30 times your body weight, or around 6,000 pounds. Technically, you could balance 2 cars on your femur and still be fine. But don't try it. Bioluminescence is a talent some animals have, like angelfish, fireflies, lanternfish, and humans. Yep, you actually shine in the dark. Scientists have discovered that we glow, but the shine is 1,000 times weaker than what our eyes can detect. You can see yourself glow if you have an ultra-sensitive camera. The amount of melanin you have in your eyes determines what color they are. Brown eyes have the largest amount of melanin, and blue eyes have much less of it. However, people with heterochromia have different color eyes. One eye can be blue, and the other can be brown, or any other color, which is cool. Sometimes only half the eye can be a different color. Now, when you sneeze, the air exiting your nose and mouth can travel at almost 100 miles per hour. We sneeze because some irritants enter the nose, and the body sneezes to remove it. And if you've never heard about your eyes falling out if you sneeze without closing them, that's a lie. Nothing will happen. Your heart is the only muscle that works 24 hours, 7 days a week. It beats over 3 billion times in a person's life and pumps around 2,500 gallons of vital fluid daily. So, you should take good care of it because it works super hard, and you can't do without it. Your funny bone isn't actually a bone but a nerve. That's why when you hit it, you get the feeling that 1,000 ants are crawling under your skin. This nerve is quite long. It starts in the spine and ends in your pinky and ring fingers. Almost all of us have heard that our noses and ears never stop growing. Well, this is not really true. Our noses and ears stop growing when we become teenagers, but they do get bigger as we age because gravity is pulling them. So they're actually stretching, not growing. When you don't get enough sleep, the brain can literally start eating itself. 13% of neurons are destroyed when you don't get a good night's sleep. That's a lot of brain power to lose. Instead of finishing that episode of your favorite series, go to bed. It's not worth it. When you are well rested and have enough sleep, your brain can create enough electricity to power a light bulb, and your neurons can send more messages than all the phones in the world combined. They travel at around 150 miles an hour, and the signals carried by your motor neurons can travel twice as fast. So get this, if someone managed to uncoil all the DNA in the human body, it would stretch out to around 10 billion miles. Hey, do the math. That's twice the distance from Earth to Pluto. And that's not the only awesome thing our body is capable of. Trillions of nerve connections are powering your memory nonstop. According to studies, after looking at 2,500 images for a mere 3 seconds, most people can recall if they have seen these pictures with 92% accuracy. Wow! Your body glows, emitting tiny amounts of barely visible light. This glow is the product of biochemical reactions going on inside your organism. The light waxes and wanes throughout the day, but even though it is visible, you can't detect it with the unaided eye. From 1 to 6 pounds of your body weight is made up of bacteria, and from 100 million to 1 billion bacteria can live on just one tooth in your mouth. So please brush. It's impossible to taste your food without saliva, all because the chemicals in your food must be dissolved in saliva before they get detected by your taste buds. Even though it sounds like a myth, eating too many carrots can indeed turn your skin orange. Carrots have high amounts of beta-carotene. That's a compound that can cause carotenemia. If you have too much of this compound in your bloodstream, it'll hold on to parts of your body with thicker skin. I'm talking about the soles of your feet, your knees, elbows, palms, and even certain areas around your nose. But worry not, this condition is not dangerous. You can easily reverse it by decreasing the amount of beta-carotene-filled foods you consume. The chin muscles, scientifically known as the mentalis muscles, look pretty quirky, giving us mixed feelings. Just look at these creepy tiny tentacles. And still, they make it possible for us to create all kinds of facial expressions that involve the lips, chin, and cheeks. And yes, they are the culprits behind those weird wrinkles and crevices on the skin of your chinny chin chin. All because these muscles don't pull on themselves, but yank on the skin. Now, people can live without some organs, leading a normal life. The human body consists of singular organs and those that come in pairs. And speaking of the latter, you only need one of those to survive. Your small intestine is actually not so small. It's taller than you, measuring around 23 feet. Now, the cornea, that transparent front cover on your eyes, doesn't have any blood supply. Instead, it receives oxygen directly from the air. Human beings develop their unique fingerprints very early in life, while they're still embryos, just 3 months after being conceived. By the way, even if fingerprints get badly damaged, they tend to grow back to their original pattern. All people are born with a diving reflex. It can get activated and shut bodily functions if one is drowning or is submerged in the water. The human brain is by no means smooth, but if you decided to flatten all those wrinkles covering it, the brain would be the size of a pillowcase, but not as useful. Newborn babies only blink once or twice in a minute. For comparison, a grown-up person blinks at least 10 times within the same time. Our lungs are the only organs that can float on the water, all because they're made up of around 300 million balloon-like structures called alveoli. Also, even if we're perfectly healthy, our lungs are never completely germ-free or sterile. Your nose is a superhero. It's your very own heater, filter, and humidifier. This organ is lined with tiny bone-like shells called turbinates. They contain blood vessels capable of heating the air and goblet cells that can help humidify the air. Also, the air you breathe gets filtered in your nose before going further to your lungs. Now, every time you eat something, your esophagus, the organ your food travels through to reach the stomach, moves in a series of wave-like contractions, pushing the food forward. This is known as peristalsis. There's a bond between your digestive system and your brain, the gut-brain axis. This is why stress or brain issues can affect the way your body digests food. Now, even though hiccups are typically harmless and resolve by themselves after a couple of minutes, they aren't exactly pleasant. So you should probably know that they might occur because of changes in temperature. The density of your brain increases throughout your whole life, all because new neural connections pop up. They appear because the structure of the brain keeps changing too. If you don't want to sneeze, press the skin on the bridge of your nose with your fingers. When you do it, your brain receives an alarm signal. Very quickly, it puts the brake on all those other processes, including the sneezing reflex. By the way, studies have found that sneezing is your nose's way to reset. A sneeze reboots the cells that line the inside of your nose. They're called cilia. The part of your brain that's responsible for vision is in the back of your head. Interestingly, the right side of your brain controls the vision on the left side, and vice versa. If you're in some loud place, for example in a club or at a concert, close your ears to better hear your friends. Push the tragus, which is that pointy skin-covered cartilage in front of the ear canal, into your ear. Then turn this ear toward your friend. On average, when a person snores, the sound doesn't get louder than 60 decibels. That's as loud as a regular conversation. But sometimes, the noise level can reach 80 decibels. That's as loud as a working food blender. Just like salamanders regrow their tails, humans might be able to regenerate cartilage. That's the rubber-like stuff surrounding your joints. Scientists have recently discovered that cartilage could repair itself. This process is likely to be the most effective at the ankle, not that effective in the knee, and the least effective in the hip. Now, if a person has anosmia, which is also called smell blindness, they don't distinguish and detect smells. Your eyes never stop moving while taking in visual information. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see the whole picture. These movements go unnoticed because your brain is a great video editor. It stabilizes the images and connects tons of fragments into one smooth video. The liver is the only human organ that can regenerate completely. Even if it's a mere 25% of the original liver weight, the organ can get back to its full size. Your mouth burns when you're snacking on pineapple because while you're eating this fruit, it's eating you back. Well, kind of. Pineapple is the only known food that contains bromelain. That's an enzyme that breaks down proteins. Luckily, your stomach acid knows how to deal with the offending enzyme. Now, we also have bacteria that can produce electricity living in our intestines. These bacteria give off electrons, which creates tiny electrical currents. This might be the bacteria's way to generate energy. Déjà vu might
Actually be something like a brain processing lag.
There's a theory claiming that it might happen when your brain is moving information from one part to another. If there's even the tiniest delay in that process, your brain will get the same information twice. In this case, it'll process it as an event that happened before. The DEC2 gene mutation allows people to have just a few hours of sleep a night and still feel great. They don't get tired and never sleep in. On average, such people wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. No more than 5% of the world's population has this feature. Your ears might pop or even hurt when you're on an airplane. You can solve this problem by simply chewing some gum. This opens up your eustachian tube. That's a small passage that connects your throat and your middle ear. Opening this passage helps equalize the pressure in your ears and puts an end to the popping. You can also yawn to open up the eustachian tubes. Your feet are likely to become bigger with time, just like your nose and your ears. You see, when people grow older, ligaments and tendons in their feet weaken. This makes the arches flatter, and the feet become wider and longer.
Take a look at your fingernails. Are they a bit ridged? There are a bunch of reasons why that might happen, and it has nothing to do with your manicure skills. To start with, know that your fingernails might be a good indicator of any health problems. But those vertical ridges are normal, especially when you get older. It's your skin's way of showing it needs to slow down. New skin cells don't get produced as rapidly as they used to, so you get this texture on your fingernails. However, if this is just one of many other weird symptoms, it might be more than just a sign of aging. For instance, it may be a sign of a chemical imbalance, which can give you vertical ridges, but also make your nails look spoon-shaped. Don't put stuff in your ear. You know that. Even with Q-tips, you should always be gentle when using it. Otherwise, you could end up causing more harm. What's even more interesting is that sticking things in your ear can trigger a weird coughing mechanism, also known as the Arnold's ear cough reflex. Turns out that the ear has a say in coughing because of the vagus nerve, this long nerve road from the brain to the belly. It taps the ear, handles the voice box, and takes a detour to the stomach. This nerve runs all sorts of daily activities without us being able to control it, from speaking to eating, and even bathroom breaks. Now, the part that connects it with the ear is Arnold's nerve. This one deals with touch sensations. Stick something in your ear and it can get triggered. And it's precisely that tickle sensation that can make you cough. Think of it as a brain blip, tricking your body into believing it's got something in the throat. You end up coughing as a way to kick out the imaginary intruder. You might be missing a muscle in your arm too, but it's okay. You are most likely born that way, and you're also one of many. It's called the palmaris longus tendon, and about 14% of the population doesn't have it. Here's how you can test it out. Gently flex your wrist and touch your pinky with your thumb. If you can see a little tendon protruding on the inside of your wrist, you've got it. If you don't, that's fine. For the most part, this muscle doesn't increase the performance of our arm. Here's another little experiment you can safely try at home. Check which one of your nostrils is your favorite, even though you probably didn't even know you had one. Stand in front of a mirror, breathe out through your nose, and watch how the fog forms. Sure, there will be 2 marks on the mirror, but for most people, one's gonna be bigger. That's because we usually breathe more from one nostril at a time. Some doctors say that about 75% of our breath comes from one single nostril. It also switches sides during the day, in a process called the nasal cycle. So why not both nostrils at once? Well, it's generally believed to be all about moisture, preventing one side from getting too dry. The only time you might be able to notice the difference is when you're trying to fall asleep. Lie on your right side, and you'll see that gravity makes one part of your nose work harder. Speaking of sleep, whenever you're trying to get some rest at a new place, only a part of your brain will actually get some quality sleep. That's because our brains are wired to remain a bit more alert when we're in an unfamiliar place. This discovery explains why we often wake up feeling groggy after a night in a new apartment. This is a feature we share with birds and sea creatures who can half sleep, keeping an eye out. Back in the day, sleep researchers noticed this and named it the first night effect. Whenever someone participated in a sleep study, they noticed the quality of their rest was so bad they had to trash the data. But after the first night, it seemed to level up. We do this because back in ancient times, the chances of getting attacked by predators during the night were way higher. So it made sense to keep that part of the brain on guard for any dangers. Unfortunately, there's no switch to flip this off. So after a night in a new place, just know you'll need way more coffee. And maybe hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our newest videos for a nice pick-me-up in those snoozy days. It's possible that each time you're getting ready for a workout, your heart is already acting up, even though you aren't technically moving your muscles yet. That's because of an effect called anticipatory rise. In simple terms, it's like your brain is sending directions to your heart, telling it to get ready. These directions come in the form of chemicals, like noradrenaline and adrenaline. It's helpful because that kick in heart rate means more blood pumping out every minute, which is good for your muscles. The increased blood flow delivers oxygen and prepares your muscles to put in the required effort. The better shape your heart's in, the smoother this whole process goes. All of us have heard stories about regular people being able to lift heavy objects in stressful situations. You know, like a mom being able to lift a car to save her kid. Some are calling it hysterical strength. And it can't really be tested out in a lab because you can't just fake a sense of imminent danger. It's more about real, spontaneous moments that somehow trigger this hidden superpower. Well, even though it sounds like people are lifting a ton of weight, they're not that strong. Take the classic car lift scenario. You'd think they're lifting the whole car, but it's more like lifting a part of it. Most wheels are still on the ground. Plus, cars aren't evenly heavy everywhere. The engine's the densest part, not the area that's often being lifted. As for the hysterical strength, it's more about realizing we're stronger than we think. Our muscles usually use the least effort needed for everyday tasks. But when we need to go all out, we can recruit more muscle power. You see, our bodies are very efficient. Why use all our muscles when lifting a coffee cup? Even when we feel exhausted, chances are we're not. Researchers say we might only use 60 to 80% of our muscle strength, and that's reserved for top athletes. Apart from efficiency, our brains also don't go full power on our muscles because of a built-in safety mechanism. If we used all our strength, we could easily hurt ourselves. The simple game of peekaboo isn't just a fun pastime for babies. They love it so much because it can help with their development. You see, it's not just about covering and uncovering faces. It helps them better master the skill of visual tracking. It's also useful for understanding the concept of object permanence. Just because they can't see something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's gone forever. This knowledge that objects exist even if they're out of sight will increase their problem-solving skills when they get older. Playing peekaboo is also a good way to exercise various positive emotions. They go from surprise to anticipation to excitement and happiness. Some say they can do just fine with just 4 hours of sleep every night. But scientists say most of us adults need a good 6 to 8 hours. And the reality is that anything less than this average can lead to serious sleep deprivation. That is, of course, if you're not one of those super sleepers. These people are magical beings who thrive on less than 6 hours of sleep each night. They function properly on that little, but they also naturally wake up after just 4 or 5 hours. Only 1 to 3% of the population can claim that title. Also, no, it's genetic. You can't train yourself to be one.
So, check this out. There are people who can bend down their pinky without bending the ring finger. But most find it hard or even impossible to do. When they move their middle or little finger, they tend to slightly bend their ring finger too. Yup, me too. Globe luxation is an extremely rare condition when people can make their eyes protrude out of their sockets. Unfortunately, this ability comes with downsides. It can cause numerous eye issues. Some indigenous groups of people, like Tibetans, can survive at altitudes as high as Mount Everest. This rare ability most likely appeared after years of evolution. The ancestors of modern Tibetans lived in high regions for thousands of years and developed red blood cell adaptations, making it possible to survive with dangerously low levels of oxygen. The Bajau are sea nomads living in Southeast Asia. These people have evolved an extra-large spleen, serving as a repository of oxygen-rich blood cells. Thanks to that, they can easily spend 5 to 10 minutes fishing underwater without coming up for air even once. Now, about 14% of the population don't have a palmaris longus muscle. It's actually a rudimentary part of the body, and the need for it disappeared in the process of evolution. So, if you don't have this muscle, worry not. Its absence doesn't affect the work of your forearm anyway. About 5 to 37% of people don't have wisdom teeth from birth. These teeth are not really needed anymore. They were important for our ancestors since they helped to chew hard food like nuts, roots, and meat, and saltwater taffy. I made that up. But since most of the food we eat today is processed, wisdom teeth are now a mere atavism. Most people have just one clockwise hair whorl, but 5 out of 100 people have a double crown. And if both whorls are directed counterclockwise, this makes a person even more unique. Some scientists think there's a genetic link between hair whorl direction and handedness. A bit more than 8% of right-handed people have counterclockwise hair whorls. But in the left-handed, This number grows up to 45%. A man's brain gets older faster than a woman's. As men age, they start complaining about memory problems and lack of concentration more and more often. At the same time, women don't have such acute problems with memory, but they feel depressed more often. Which one would you choose? Now, when someone is lying, their own nose gives them away. Psychologists from the University of Granada have discovered that when a person tells a lie, the temperature around their nose and in the inner corners of their eyes goes up. This phenomenon got the name of, wait for it, the Pinocchio effect. Japanese people have particular bacteria in their intestines. These bacteria help them to digest sushi. The Japanese have been eating raw seaweed for centuries. Microorganisms dwelling on the surface of the seaweed got into their bodies and actively developed. Nowadays, the bacteria help Japanese people digest raw food and prevent different problems connected with food. So, people have as many hairs on their bodies as chimpanzees. The hair count of a person and a chimp is approximately the same. The only difference is that human body hair is mostly useless and so fine that it's almost impossible to see. Humans don't have more genes than other species. In fact, people have fewer genes than a worm. Tomatoes also have many more genes than you do. But we are such complicated creatures. Well, recently, scientists have concluded that the number of genes that a genome contains isn't closely connected with the complexity of a living being. Let's take a breather. Speaking of which, your left lung consists of 2 lobes, while your right lung is divided into 3 parts. Plus, the lung on the left is a bit smaller since it has to make room for your heart. Your lungs also contain around 1,500 miles of airways. It's more than half the distance between New York and Los Angeles. There are also more than 300 million alveoli, which are tiny balloon-shaped air sacs in your lungs. People have 5 most obvious senses: vision, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. But that's not all. How about thermoception, the sense of heat? Or nociception, the perception of pain? Or your body awareness, proprioception? To figure out what it is, close your eyes and touch your nose. Got it? That's proprioception in action. This list can be much longer. Some experts state people have from 21 to 53 senses. So your fingers get all wrinkly after you spend too much time in the water. Pruny fingers are caused by the narrowing of your blood vessels. When you stay in the water for a long time, your nervous system makes your blood vessels shrink. Your body sends the blood away from that area, and this loss of blood makes your vessels thinner. The skin starts folding over them, forming those funny wrinkles. Scientists think this process helps us have a better grip when our hands and feet are wet. There are 3 kinds of cone cells in the average person's eyes. These cones help to recognize the colors in the blue, red, and green spectrums. Thanks to them, most people can distinguish around 1 million different shades. But those with tetrachromacy have 4 cones in their eyes. This feature allows them to see up to 100 million different hues. This vision anomaly is extremely rare and is much more common in women than in men. Interestingly, most people with tetrachromacy don't even realize they see the world brighter than others. Now, not all people have round pupils. 2 people out of every 10,000 have unusually shaped pupils. Most commonly, they resemble keyholes. This eye disorder is called coloboma. Interestingly, some people with this condition don't have any problems with their vision. Only 3 to 22% of people in the world have Morton's toe. It's a foot structure where the second toe is longer than the first one. Michelangelo's David and the Statue of Liberty both have this unusual body feature. Hey, toes up! In some people, saliva accumulates in a gland under their tongue. It can then get propelled out in a stream when a person presses on this gland. If the mouth is open at the moment, a jet can reach several feet. This process, called gleeking, can occur spontaneously. A person accidentally pushes their tongue against the gland while eating, yawning, talking, or cleaning their teeth, and voila! Up to 35% of people can gleek, but just 1% can do it on command. I had a friend in college who did that. Yeah, it was weird. About 18 to 35% of people have an interesting reaction to sunlight. They sneeze. This phenomenon has its own name, the photic sneeze reflex. In the Greek language, it's called sun sneezing. Achoo! Just like salamanders regrow their tails, Humans might be able to regenerate cartilage. That's the rubber-like stuff around your joints. Recently, scientists have discovered that cartilage might be able to repair itself, most effectively at the ankle, not that well in the knee, and least effectively in the hip. The human brain is 73% water, just like your heart. That's why if your brain loses even 2% of liquid, you start feeling exhausted. This also makes your memory get worse, shortens your attention span, and puts a damper on your mood. So drink up! Your brain is constantly processing tons of visual information, around 600 million bits per minute. It all starts when the light goes through the cornea, your eye's clear protective outer layer. Then the light turns into electrical signals. They travel to your brain and it interprets them into the images you see. It takes milliseconds for this complicated process to happen. People who live to be 110 years and older, called supercentenarians, may have a secret. Researchers have discovered that their immune cells, called T helpers, might change and adapt to the late stages of aging. These cells are likely to protect them from viruses and other health problems. We've become impressive multitaskers thanks to technology, or rather, it only seems so. The human brain can't concentrate on two things at once. What it can do is to switch between several tasks really fast, but it makes your attention span shorter and harms your short-term memory and the ability to learn. So put that phone down. You know when you have a stuffy nose and all you can think about are the nights you've taken smooth breathing for granted? Our bodies do a lot of work to keep us comfortable every day. So, in the spirit of staying grateful, let's take a look at a couple of these amazing things the human body does every minute. Starting with our eyes, which are constantly relaying loads of visual info to the brain. The cornea acts like an entrance gate, skillfully bending light. The iris, or the colorful part, adjusts the light dose, and the lens focuses the rest onto the retina. This last one then transforms all that light into electrical signals that are sent to the brain for interpretation. Sounds like a lot of work, but it all gets done in milliseconds. This means that in just a single minute, our brain handles somewhere around 600 million bits of visual data. More than half our bodies are made of water. 55% if you're a lady and 65% if you're a gentleman, to be precise. To make sure this water balance is always in check, our bodies come equipped with a hydration monitor. It's always looking into how much water we're losing through things like sweating or even breathing. If as little as 1% of the water quantity goes missing, we'll start to feel thirsty. We also wouldn't be here if it weren't for those hearts pumping in our chests. Well, actually, just one heart per person. The speed at which it pumps can change depending on how fit you are, your feelings, your size, and even if you're doing a new yoga pose that requires a bit more effort. On average, doctors say adults have anywhere between 60 to 100 heartbeats per minute when they're resting. Now, the fitter you get, the less pressure you put on your heart, and you might even end up having a heart rate as low as 40 beats per minute. Each time this organ gets a little thump, it's pushing about 2.4 ounces of blood around your body. If your resting heart rate is 80 beats per minute, your heart's pushing 1.5 gallons of blood every 60 seconds. Ever wonder how fast your body bounces back after losing blood? We've got on average about 10 pints of it in our adult bodies. When one of them is lost, our bodies start working hard to replace it. And it's faster than you'd imagine. Within 24 hours, the volume loss is replaced. And within a few weeks, we're as good as new. That's because every second, our bodies make some 2 million fresh red blood cells. That's 120 million every minute. When it comes to white blood cells and platelets, the process is even faster. Our breathing mechanism is fascinating too. For grown-ups, the regular breath count is about 12 to 20 breaths per minute. Infants, however, have a faster rate of 30 to 60 breaths per minute. When you take in air, it requires the effort of an entire team. Your brain's command center sends signals down to your diaphragm, telling it to flatten out. Your ribs and abdominal muscles adjust to allow your chest to expand, pulling the air into your lungs. Breathing out is a bit easier. Your used-up air gets pushed out by your elastic lungs. But when you're putting in a bit more effort, that's when your abs help a bit more in the exhale process. Now, when it comes to reading, our brains can amp up that skill, sometimes reaching up to 1,000 words per minute. If you do the math, it means your brain can read a 300-page book in just 2.5 hours. One interesting feature about how our brain processes reading is that it doesn't necessarily do it in a straight line. In fact, our eyes do these unique movements called saccades. They're quick jumps across the text back and forth. Sometimes it's a big leap, other times a tiny hop. They help us soak in tons of information fast, and they happen a bunch of times every second. How big or small the jump is depends on how good we are at reading and how familiar we are with the topic at hand. Do you want to find out more about a variety of topics, like science, pop culture, or history? Well, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest videos. Our skin is the largest organ we own, and is perpetually shedding around 30,000 cells every 60 seconds. Most of the time we don't even notice, but our faces and bodies are constantly removing layers. Yep, a lot of that dust around your house is you. It's a month-long journey for those fresh skin cells to pop up to the surface, and that process speeds up or slows down with age. During our 60s or even later, it can take up to 8 weeks for cell turnover, and that buildup of skin makes your complexions look a bit dull. Thankfully, there are a lot of products we can use these days to help with dry skin, like moisturizers and serums. You can't talk without your tongue. Well, you can technically, but most people won't understand a word you're saying. On any day, our tongue teams up with our lips and teeth to turn throat sounds into words that make sense. The tongue itself is flexible and speedy, capable of letting out more than 90 words a minute, using a variety of over 20 moves. While we can vocalize without using the tongue, we need it to pronounce consonants like T, D, L, and R, or if you're a pirate, R. This important organ is the same reason parrots can so easily imitate us, though most of them have no idea what they're saying. These birds have a thick tongue, and even though they've got fewer muscle moves, it helps them mimic human speech quite accurately. So be careful what you say around them. Humans also blink 15 to 20 times each minute. It might not sound like a lot, but it does mean we're spending about 10% of our awake time with our eyes shut. For many years, scientists believed that blinking served a single purpose: to keep our eyes moist. That's mostly why we produce tears, by the way. And with the help of our eyelids, this creates a little cover for the whole eyeball, preventing it from feeling itchy. However, blinking does more. A study from the past decade pointed out that when we blink, our brain hits a mini reset button. It powers down some parts linked to vision and attention. And since attention messes with how we perceive time, blinks could be like these time travel moments for our brains, or mini power naps if you like. Now, on average, people have around 35 to 48 thoughts per minute. It depends on a variety of things, like what we've been through, how we're feeling, and even where we are. When it comes to thought formation, we do know that brain cells can communicate. But understanding exactly how our ideas pop up in our minds is still a bit of a mystery. Our brain features many neurons, these fascinating cells shooting out electrical charges to talk to each other. It's these neurons that spill out brain chemicals called neurotransmitters. Think of it as passing notes that create electric signals, and as these signals surf through thousands of neurons, like a wave, thoughts pop up in our heads. Now, each time you munch on a snack, you're fueling up this power plant, which is your body. One single calorie from your food is around 4,200 energy units called joules. If you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you're transforming that into almost 6,000 joules every minute. And here's how everything happens. After you eat, the food follows its journey through your mouth, down into your stomach, and makes its way into small pieces in your bloodstream. Imagine tiny delivery trucks carrying oxygen and other useful substances to your cells. Once inside, these cells have many factories inside called mitochondria. They're responsible for turning those deliveries into adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. This is our cell's energy currency. It's used to make more cells, it helps us move, or even send messages through electrical impulses to other cells. Come to think of it, this sure makes me want to be nicer to my body for all it does. How about you? The human body is this perfectly balanced machine, right? Well, not when I'm using it. Normally, all its parts work seamlessly together to keep us thriving and, well, alive. Each of our organs is essential for our day-to-day activities, from breathing, walking, talking, and coming up with bright ideas that push humanity forward. But are they really essential? Do we really need all those body parts? Or are some of them just ancient relics that we just got stuck with in this weird game of evolution? Take wisdom teeth, for example. Nah, somebody already took mine. Yeah, they're those pairs of teeth stuck in the back of your mouth you often have to go to the dentist for. They're also known as third molars, and while they can be used to chew food, a lot of people think they're just unnecessary. And get this, around 22% of people worldwide don't even have all four of them. When they do grow in, they're the most likely to become impacted, which means they get stuck in the jawbone sideways and can't properly come through the gums. It's all because our jaws are often too small to accommodate these extra guys. Some smart scientists think that's because we've evolved to have smaller jaws over time. Recent evidence also shows that what we eat as kids might also be to blame, but it's hard to know for sure. Apparently, munching on hard-to-chew foods like raw veggies and nuts can actually stimulate jaw growth, while eating soft processed foods can kinda stunt it. And that leaves little space for our back teeth to come in and, do their thing. Will they disappear altogether in the future? I guess we human mammals will just have to wait and see. Now let's talk about the vomeral nasal organ, or as I like to call it, the nose's secret instrument. Ooh. You see, rodents and other mammals have this awesome ability to communicate with each other using chemical signals called pheromones. And guess what? They have a special organ called the vomeral nasal organ, or VNO, that helps them detect these pheromones. Here's where it gets interesting. While most adult humans have something resembling a VNO in their nose, it turns out that it's basically a useless remnant. Neuroscientists even say that if you look at the anatomy of this organ, you won't see any cells that resemble those of similar organs from other mammals. Also, this organ in humans doesn't seem to be communicating with the brain either. Now, it's not all bad news. Even though the human VNO is pretty useless, it looks like it still might respond to some pheromones. Will humans keep this organ on their evolutionary to-do list? For now, I'd place it in the maybe pile. Now, here's a tail. Animals that feature tails need these structures for a lot of things. Some need it for balance, others for navigation, while some need it to attract potential partners. But did you know that when we're just a few weeks old in our mother's belly, we actually have tails too? That's right, we have a whole little tail complete with vertebrae. As we develop, that tail magically disappears and we're left with our trusty tailbone. Humans and apes are unique in that we don't have tails, unlike other primates. It's a mystery why apes lost their tails, but we can all agree that it makes us stand out in a crowd. However, once in a blue moon, a human is born with a little vestigial tail. Cute, right? Well, don't get too excited, because these tails don't have vertebrae and can sometimes be associated with a tricky condition of the spine. Either way, these tails are usually harmless and can be easily removed with a quick surgery. And let's be honest, it's not like we're going to miss it. After all, who needs a tail when you have arms and legs to get around? Plus, can you imagine trying to find pants that fit with a tail sticking out the back? Not a good look. There's little to no chance humans will end up needing tails in the future, so I'm guessing the tailbones are bye-bye in future generations. Humans also have a funny little fold of membrane in the inner corner of the eyes, called the plica semilunaris. It's basically what's left of a third eyelid, which is still found in some animals, like gorillas and other primates. But here's the funny thing. Even our close relatives, the chimpanzees, have this little fold that appears to be useless too. So we're not alone in this eye quirkiness. Speaking of unusual membranes, they serve a variety of functions in different animals, such as protecting the eye from dirt and moisture, or hiding the iris from predators. Some species can even see through their transparent membranes when they're underwater or underground. Now, the reasons why we humans lost our third eyelid is still a bit of a mystery. Maybe changes in our habitat and eye physiology made it unnecessary, or maybe we just evolved to be too cool for a third eyelid. Who knows? With or without vestigial organs, it's interesting to imagine what humans might look like in the future. Many organs have become obsolete because of our lifestyle changes. Care to have a peek into what we might look like in the future? And in the same vein, or artery, have you heard of the concept of text claw? It's where you spend so much time typing on your phone or laptop that your hand starts to cramp up like a claw. And that's just one of the physical changes that could happen to us if we don't take care of our bodies in this tech-heavy world. But it's not just our hands that are affected. We could end up with 90-degree elbows from constantly holding our devices at that angle, and even a smaller brain from all the distractions and information overload. Now, I know what you're thinking. We just can't give up technology and go back to the Stone Age. And you're right, we don't have to. But we do need to be aware of the potential negative effects and take steps to reduce their damage. That's why a team of designers put their creative efforts together to present Mindy, a future human whose body has physically changed due to the constant and never-ending use of smartphones, laptops, and other types of maniacal devices. While Mindy's exaggerated changes may not be in our future, the concerns behind them are real. So, what can we do? Well, one suggestion is to take regular breaks from our screens and stretch our legs a little. Maybe even encourage some office yoga or dance parties to get the blood flowing. We don't have to give up technology completely, but we do need to be mindful of its effects on our bodies and minds. Many years in the future, we might even get smaller in size. One scientist reckons that if we were smaller, our bodies would need less energy, which would come in super handy in our increasingly crowded planet. It's funny to think about how different our lives are now compared to when we were hunter-gatherers. Back then, we only had to interact with a handful of people each day. But now, remembering people's names is a super important trait, and it might even be something we grow to become better at. Or, technology might actually play a role in our evolution. Scientists believe that we could one day have implants in our brains that help us remember people's names. It's like having a biological phone book directly in your body. Wouldn't that be cool? Who knows? Maybe in the future, we'll even have visible technology as part of our appearance. Imagine having an artificial eye that can see different colors and visuals. And don't even get me started on what we might look like if we colonize Mars. With the lower gravity, our bodies could change in all sorts of ways. We might have longer arms and legs, or even insulating body hair like our Neanderthal ancestors. It's hard to pinpoint what we might look like in the future without very precise data to back the models up. But it's fair to say these changes will be interesting, to say the least. As for me, well, it's too late to say the least. I've said over 1,400 words here already.
The human tongue consists of 8 intertwined muscles. The whole structure resembles an elephant's trunk or an octopus tentacle. Just like them, the tongue is very flexible and can move in any directions. People who live to be 110 years and older, also called supercentenarians, may have a secret. Researchers have discovered they have more immune cells called T helpers than the average person. These cells are likely to protect some people from some health problems. Scientists have always thought that the human brain is a sterile place, free of germs or bacteria. But the latest studies have shown that experts might have been wrong all along. It seems there are harmless microbes living in our brains, but researchers need a bit more time to make sure. Researchers believe that if people suddenly started to be born with 6 fingers, the brain would easily adapt to it. Those with polydactyly, extra fingers or toes, usually don't have any problems with this feature. Their brains know how to control additional fingers, and how to use each of them independently. Such people sometimes need only one hand to carry out a task for which others would need two hands. In some people, saliva accumulates in a gland under their tongue. It can then get propelled out in a stream when a person presses on this gland. If the mouth is open at the moment, a jet can reach several feet. This process, called gleeking, can occur spontaneously. A person accidentally pushes their tongue against the gland while eating, yawning, talking, or cleaning their teeth, and voila! Up to 35% of people can gleek, but just 1% can do it on command. About 25% of people have an interesting reaction to sunlight, I mean sneezing. This phenomenon has its own name, the photic sneeze reflex. In the Greek language, it's called sun sneezing. Just like salamanders regrow their tails, humans might be able to regenerate cartilage, that's rubber-like stuff around your joints. Scientists have discovered that cartilage is likely to repair itself, most effectively at the ankle, not that well in the knee, and least effectively in the hip. The older you get, the fewer bones you have. When people are born, they have many more than 206 bones. In babies, most bones look different than they do in grown-ups, and there are more than 300 of them. Where do those extra ones go? They sure do not disappear or dissolve. They fuse together as they develop. Until they merge, some bones contain neither collagen nor calcium, what we think is standard bone material. No, they start as flexible yet tough cartilage. Later, the cartilage turns into sturdier bones, and some of the pieces come together. For example, the skull initially consists of 44 different elements, but a grown-up skull is made up of 22 bones. Some bones don't fully form till our early to mid-20s. When someone's lying, their own nose gives them away. Psychologists from the University of Granada discovered that when a person told a lie, the temperature around their nose and the inner corners of the eyes went up. This phenomenon was called the Pinocchio effect. Ancient Greeks had stories about fire-breathing creatures called chimeras. They were a fearsome mixture of a goat, lion, and snake. In real life, chimeras are people who have two different sets of DNA. Scientists have recorded no more than 100 cases of human chimerism. Albinism is a rare feature to have. People with albinism have very little to no melanin, a substance that produces pigmentation. But if it's ocular albinism, that's even more unique. This kind of albinism affects only a person's eyes. Experts don't have exact numbers, but they think between 1 person in 20,000 to 1 person in 50,000 have ocular albinism. Scientists have figured out that you might be good at hearing things thanks to a teeny jello violin. Inside your ear, there is a miniature assembly line of nerves, tissues, fibers, and bones. It turns vibrations into sounds. And there is also a blob of jelly-like substance made up of 97% water. Researchers believe that thanks to this jello, your ear can separate high frequencies from lower ones. Your brain is constantly processing tons of visual information, around 600 million bits per minute. It all starts when the light goes through the cornea, your eye's clear, protective outer layer. After several transformations, the light turns into electrical signals. They travel to your brain, and it interprets them into images you see. It takes milliseconds for this super complicated process to happen. The human brain is 73% water, just like your heart. That's why if your brain loses even 2% of liquid, you start feeling exhausted. This also makes your memory worse, shortens your attention span, and puts a dampener on your mood. Around 65% of the world's population have loop-shaped fingerprints. In 30% of people, fingerprints are whorl-shaped, and only 5% of people have arch-shaped fingerprints. All these types are divided into smaller groups. For example, there might be plain or tented arches, accidental whorls, or the peacock's eye, and so on. If you have a circular hair whorl on your head, it's likely to be clockwise. Some scientists think there is a genetic link between hair whorl direction and handedness. A bit more than 8% of right-handed people have counterclockwise hair whorls, but in the left-handed, this number grows up to 45%. There are more than 650 skeletal muscles in your body. They make up around 40% of your body weight. Up to 85% of the heat your body produces comes from your muscles contracting. At the same time, caterpillars have many more muscles than people. Some species, up to 4,000 of them, and the grasshopper has 900. Your brain can decide what sounds to focus on when you're in a loud place. Thanks to this ability, you can shut out all other voices and concentrate on the person you're listening to. The Bajo is a group of nomadic people that live in the waters around the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Thanks to a rare DNA mutation, they can stay underwater for up to 13 minutes. The Bajo people have evolved spleens that are way larger than average. This feature provides them with a genetic advantage. Sea nomads needed to hunt for fish or look for underwater stuff that can be used in crafts. Human bones might be loaded with a network of tiny tunnels. Scientists knew nothing about them until recently. That's why it was unclear how blood cells, which are produced in our bones, could quickly exit bones and get into the blood circulation. But now the mystery may be finally solved. If there are holes, there can also be capillaries, miniature blood vessels. Some people have more than one row of eyelashes. This phenomenon is a genetic mutation called distichiasis. A person with this condition has a second set of eyelashes growing behind the first. All these thick, lush lashes sure look beautiful, but they can also cause some discomfort. Some hairs can start growing in the wrong direction, or in the place where an oil gland is supposed to be. It can cause irritation and tearing. Why do your fingernails turn blue when you get cold? For one thing, your fingers are rather far away from the rest of your body, just like your toes or the very tip of your nose. Imagine a piece of tissue in the middle of your body. It gets circulation from all sides, left and right, up and down. But the ends of your fingers have just one option. Blood can only flow from the hand down the fingers. When it's cold, little blood vessels, aka capillaries, in your fingers narrow. It prevents blood from flowing as freely as before. When blood circulation slows down, the tips of your fingers and your fingernails don't get enough oxygen-rich blood, and the less oxygen your blood contains, the darker it becomes. Its color is actually dark red, but we perceive it as blue. The hippocampus is a part of your brain that helps you navigate in space. You have two of them, each the size of a chestnut. London cab drivers have bigger hippocampi than most other people. Researchers are sure it's thanks to their regular mental workout. It's not a gimme to navigate 60,000 London streets.
You have as much hair as a monkey. Now, I don't mean to be insulting, but your fingerprints are not unique. You can hear better after you cover your ears. Now, can these statements be true, or are they nothing but myths? When a person is lying, their own nose can give them away. Can it be true? Yep. Researchers from the University of Granada have discovered that when a person tells a lie, the temperature around their nose and in the inner corners of their eyes rises. This phenomenon got named the Pinocchio effect. Hey, how about this one? People can have as many hairs on their body as chimpanzees. Can you believe this? Surprisingly, this one's true too. The hair count of a person and a chimp, or any other ape of our size, is approximately the same. The only difference is that human body hair is quite fine and often colorless. This makes it hard to see the sheer number of hairs. Your lungs are identical. It sounds reasonable, but is it true? Well, it's nothing but a myth. Your left lung consists of two lobes, while your right lung is divided into 3 parts. Plus, the lung on the left is a bit smaller. It has to make room for your heart. By the way, your lungs also contain around 1,500 miles of airways. It's more than half the distance between New York and Los Angeles. There are also more than 300 million alveoli, tiny balloon-shaped air sacs in your lungs. I bet you've heard this one before. Carrots can make your eyesight better. True or myth? Unfortunately, this idea isn't true. Neither can carrots get you better nighttime vision. Carrots are indeed packed with vitamin A. It benefits your body and protects your eyes. But even these veggies can't save you from wearing glasses if you need them. Some people sneeze when looking at the sun. Now, do they? Yes, that's true. About 25% of people have an interesting reaction to sunlight. They sneeze. This phenomenon even has its own name, the photic sneeze reflex. Ooh. Shaving body hair makes it grow darker and thicker. Is it the truth? Don't worry, that's just a myth. It might look as if your body hair has changed in thickness, rate of growth, or even color after getting shaved. But it's just an illusion. Shaving makes the tips of hair follicles blunt. That's why they look rougher and darker than usual. But once your hair grows in again, it'll start to look the same as it did before you shaved it. You have unique fingerprints. Ah, this one must be true, right? The problem with this statement is that scientists can't prove that each set of fingerprints is absolutely unique. It does seem to people, but it's impossible to check. And while this is improbable, people with identical fingerprints can actually turn out to be real. People have more than 5 senses. Is it an appealing myth or reality? There are 5 most obvious senses: vision, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. But how about thermoception, the sense of heat? Nociception, the perception of pain, or the perception of your body awareness. Proprioception, close your eyes and touch your nose. Got it? That's proprioception in action. This list can be much longer. Some experts state people have from 21 to 53 senses. Your fingers actually get pruny after you spend too much time in the water for your safety. Is it true? What's your bet? Scientists believe so, but first things first, pruny fingers are caused by narrowing blood vessels. When you stay in the water for a long time, your nervous system makes your blood vessels shrink. Your body sends the blood away from that area, and this loss of blood makes your vessels thinner. The skin starts folding over them, forming those funny wrinkles. Scientists aren't 100% sure, but they think this process occurs to help you have a better grip when your hands and feet are wet. People only use 10% of their brains. Oh, how I wish it was just a myth. And it is. Apparently, you use almost 100% of your brain every day. This organ is active all the time, even when you're asleep. When you're snoozing, your frontal cortex, which is responsible for higher-level thinking, and the areas that help you sense your surrounding, are still doing their job. For some people, the world is much brighter than for others. How come? That's actually true. There are 3 kinds of cone cells in the average person's eyes. These cones help to recognize the colors in the blue, red, and green spectrums. Thanks to them, most people can distinguish around 1 million different shades. But those with technochromacy have 4 cones in their eyes. This feature allows them to see up to 100 million different hues. This vision anomaly is extremely rare, and women have it more often than men. But do you know the funniest thing about this? Most people with technochromacy don't even realize they see the world brighter than others. Sometimes you can hear better after closing your ears. Well, it seems counterproductive, but can it be true? Indeed, if you're in a loud place, for example, in a club or at a concert, you should close your ears to hear your friends better. Push the tragus, which is the pointy skin-covered cartilage in front of your ear canal, into your ear. Then turn this ear toward your friend. Voila! You can prevent yourself from sneezing. Oh, that would be very convenient, but maybe it's just a myth. It's true. If you don't want to sneeze, press the skin on the bridge of your nose with your fingers. When you do it, your brain receives an alarm signal. It immediately puts the brakes on all other processes, including the sneezing reflex. Okay, you're gonna finish these 5 episodes of your favorite series now and catch up on sleep later. But can you? Unfortunately, no. You can try to catch up on sleep at the weekend or take lots of afternoon naps during the week, but it won't help. Your body doesn't work this way. If you didn't have enough sleep the night before or went to bed really late, sleeping until noon won't save the day. Even worse, too much sleep will make you feel groggy. Some people have more ribs than others. Is it a myth? Nah, it's true. Most people have 12 pairs of ribs, which makes 24 in total. But 1 in 200 people has an additional 25th rib. It's called cervical and forms at the base of the neck above the collarbone. It can grow on the left, right, or even both sides of the body. Those people who have extra ribs most likely know nothing about this modification. That's because an extra rib rarely forms completely and can look like a thin strand of tissue. In this case, you won't see it even on an X-ray. You should wait for at least a half an hour after eating before you go swimming. Well, it sounds reasonable, but is it true? Ah, that's just a myth. The general idea behind this claim is that eating a large meal makes your blood flow toward your stomach to help with the digestion process. At the same time, your muscles don't get enough blood, which leads to cramps. But in reality, swimming right after having eaten something isn't dangerous at all. Your blood doesn't get diverted enough for it to cause any serious problems. Some people's snores can get louder than a working kitchen appliance. What do you think about this? Well, on average, when a person snores, the sound doesn't get louder than 60 decibels, which is as loud as a regular conversation. But sometimes, the noise level can reach 80 decibels, and that's as loud as a working food blender. Not all people have round pupils. Can it be true? Yup. 2 people out of every 10,000 have an unusually shaped pupil. Most commonly, it resembles a keyhole. This eye disorder is called coloboma. Interestingly, some people with this condition don't have any problems with their vision. Hey, not to freak you out or anything, but every second, your body creates 25 million new cells. I'll do the math for you. That means that in about 15 seconds, you'll have produced more cells than there are people in the United States. Think about that next time you feel you haven't been productive enough. It may account for only 2% of our body mass, but our brains actually take up 20% of our blood supply and oxygen. Our brains can also produce enough energy to supply a light bulb. That is, when we're awake. Ever thought about what the largest human organ is? It's your skin, and is thickest on the palms of your hands and soles of your feet. I know, I hate dusting too, but you are particularly responsible for that layer of fluff on your TV screen, you know. Every human being sheds about 600,000 particles of skin every hour, and most of the dust around your house is actually composed of that. So yes, we're all rather flaky. These days, it's considered more of a beauty mark, but the reason why people are born with a Cupid's bow is actually quite intriguing. As our features start to develop before we're even born, It appears that the Cupid's bow is actually the place where our face, well, zips up. The right side of the face and the left side of the face, that is. While in humans, it may not be that obvious. If you look at your dog's nose, you'll see it has a straight vertical line just under the nostrils. That's right, dogs have this zip too. Did you know you were born with more bones than you have today? At birth, we have somewhere around 300 bones, but as we age, some of them fuse together. That's why in adulthood, we end up having about 200 bones. Although your teeth are technically part of your skeletal system, they're not actually bones. They do look sort of similar and do share some characteristics, like being the hardest element in your body. Why the misconception, though? Well, it's mostly because both teeth and bones contain calcium. To be a bit more specific, about 99% of the body's calcium is in your bones and teeth. The remaining calcium is in your bloodstream. So, what makes them different, you might ask? It's in how the bones and teeth heal and how you should take care of them. While bones can repair and heal themselves, your teeth aren't able to do that. That's why we have dentists. We don't only have unique fingerprints, our tongues are one of a kind as well. Research has shown that those approximately 10,000 taste buds on our tongues are laid out in a unique pattern, specific for each one of us. About 80% of what you believe is taste is actually smell. The combination of taste and smell that we perceive is what we come to know as flavor. It's probably because our sense of smell is around 10,000 times stronger than our sense of taste. So, the next time you're tuning in your favorite song, try to pay some attention to your heartbeat. Do you hear that? Yep, that's right. While listening to some music, your heartbeat will sync with the rhythm of the song. And speaking of that healthy ticker of yours, just in case you're wondering, it beats on average about 75 times per minute. This means that in any given year, a human heart can pump enough blood to fill an Olympic-sized pool. What's even more fascinating is that if you were to connect all your blood vessels end to end, you'd be able to circle the Earth 4 times. But that would really hurt, so don't try that. We are the only species on this planet to have a chin. There's still some debate around this subject in the scientific community, but one of the reasons seems to be to make our jaws stronger. As humans have continued to evolve, their teeth and the muscles in their jaws got smaller and smaller, so they needed something to help with increased jaw resistance. That transparent part of your eye is called the cornea, and it helps the light go through. It's also the only part of your body that isn't connected to any blood supply. Why? Because it's especially designed to get its oxygen straight from the surrounding atmosphere. If you took out all the fat found in a healthy human body, it would be enough to make 7 bars of soap. We also produce enough saliva in our lifetimes to fill 2 swimming pools. Great expectorations. Ever wondered how much we actually eat during our whole lifetimes? I'll spare you the math. An average-sized person eats nearly 66,000 pounds of food throughout the whole course of their lifetime. How much is that for scale? About 6 elephants. And that ain't peanuts. Each of us carries around 4 pounds of bacteria on average at any given time in our bodies. But hey, don't go running to the doctor just yet. Most of that bacteria is actually good and have specific functions in the human body, like digestion and our immune systems. If you want to have an accurate depiction of your height, make sure you measure yourself in the morning. That's because you're about 0.4 inches taller right when you wake up. Trust me, it isn't magic. It's merely because, throughout the day, the soft cartilage between your spinal bones gets squashed down and compressed, making you seem shorter by the time you go to bed. We know that we have some sort of energy moving around our bodies, so we actually do emit a tiny amount of light. It's too weak for our own eyes to see, though, but if you think about it, you're actually glowing as we speak. The humorist and author Mark Twain once said, "Man is the only animal that blushes, or needs to." How true. But not all humans can blush, and those that do blush to different degrees. Is there some sort of evolutionary reason for why we blush? It seems so. Blushing is a way for us to communicate without using any words, just like dogs wag their tails when they're happy or excited. So, basically, blushing can be translated to "I'm embarrassed," similar to how we shiver when we're cold. If the human eye was a camera, it would have about 576 megapixels. Our vision of the world changes throughout our lives. As soon as we're born, we see the world upside down for a bit. Our brain is programmed to show the inverted image formed on our retina by the convex eye lens. But that doesn't kick in immediately after birth. Hey, I'm sure you enjoy that weekly cardio and weightlifting, but the strongest muscle in the human body is definitely not the one you've been working on. It's actually in your jaws. Your jaws are designed similarly to a nutcracker. Why? So you can get powerful bites with as little energy as possible. The fastest muscle is located in your eyes. That's probably how we came up with the expression, "in the blink of an eye," for when something happens really quickly. Did you know that your nose comes with a built-in reset feature? It happens when you sneeze. Sneezing is basically your nose's way of getting rid of all the bad particles it has inhaled up to a certain point. If you think that's bad, it's not. Did you also think your pinky finger is something weak and pretty much useless? Well, it actually packs up to 50% of the strength in your hand. We still haven't figured out precisely why people yawn. Now, we aren't the only creatures to do it. Baboons, guinea pigs, and the Siamese fighting fish yawn to warn other animals to stay away. Penguins seem to yawn during courtship rituals, and snakes yawn at times after a good meal. Boy, there's a happy snake. Some theories suggest it helps us get more oxygen in, while others indicate that it helps with regulating our body temperatures. Either way, we still don't know for sure. Our ears and noses are the only organs that continue to grow throughout our lifetimes. Our eyes stay more or less the same size as we grow up. By the time we're 3 months old, our corneas should technically reach their full size.
Our skin is the biggest and fastest growing organ. Strong but flexible. It's a waterproof yet breathable barrier that keeps us safe from the external world. Our skin regenerates itself. It helps with regulating body temperature and reduces water loss. This has helped us to evolve into what we are today. Our skin developed melanin, a natural pigment that blocks harmful UV radiation. Special sweat glands helped our ancestors regulate their temperature while walking long distances in unpleasant conditions. Your body has between 2 and 5 million sweat glands. The more active you are, the more sweat they produce. Your body has a mechanism to recognize it's time for you to cool off, so you can keep up with the workout. Breathing isn't only about moving the air inside and outside. It's about the way you do it, because it can literally affect your face shape. If you breathe through your nose, you'll get well-defined cheekbones over time. It will also make your face wider, because your tongue will exert force against your jaw. If you breathe through your mouth, your tongue won't have a place to rest. It will change your facial structure as time goes by. Your face can be more narrow, and your cheekbones won't be that visible. Also, if you're a mouth breather, you'd probably tend to tilt your head backwards more. This way, you increase cranial contents in the back part of your brain and directly change your entire posture, along with the shape of your neck and face. Millennials, or people born between 1981 and 1996, are more forgetful than older people. The main cause of their forgetfulness comes from higher levels of stress. So hey, chill. Your left lung is smaller than the right one because it shares space with your heart. Humans don't have such big teeth as a tiger shark, or so many of them. But research says, even though sharks have teeth coated with really tough enamel, they're not stronger than ours. We have proteins that glue our teeth together to stop the entire tooth from cracking. We don't lose them, unlike sharks. Their teeth aren't attached to their gums on a root like ours. So, they approximately lose one tooth every week. Ever wondered why you have toenails? Nails are made of keratin. That's a protein you can find in fur, claws, hooves, and hair. Unlike claws, our nails are flat and wide. They shield the tips of our toes and fingers from injuries. Also, thanks to fingernails, we have a rigid backing that helps us grab and separate different objects. It would be hard to peel a sticker from the backing or pick up a jigsaw piece without nails. Apes and monkeys use their feet for similar delicate tasks as well. Scientists think that primates evolved nails to tightly grasp branches, remove ticks, and do other similar things. The human body glows in the dark, which means we're faintly bioluminescent. But that light is 1,000 times weaker than our eyes can see. Other animals will easily spot our faint light, though. Your eyes are pretty sensitive. You almost never get the chance to see how sensitive your eyes are because of all the light constantly surrounding you. Human cells are only 43% of the total cell count in your body, and the rest are microscopic colonists. That means you're mostly made up of bacteria and fungi. So basically, you're the mix of the DNA of gut microbes and your own DNA. The most abundant element in the human body is oxygen, at 65%, but it also contains lithium, cobalt, gold, and uranium. The rarest one of all is radium. On average, humans yawn 20 times a day, partially spontaneously, for example, when you're tired, but sometimes when someone yawns near you. Scientists think it could be a thing called social mirroring. Usually when animals mimic others, they recognize some action as useful, so they decide to do it too. With humans, it happens when someone crosses legs, laughs, smiles at you, or yawns. Hot coffee can taste better than cold coffee. Your taste bud receptors are most sensitive when your food is at or a little bit above room temperature. Hot coffee can then seem less bitter because taste buds that detect bitterness are more sensitive when the coffee is cold. Your pinky is a powerful little thing. Without it, your hand would lose a significant part of its power. Your index and middle fingers cooperate with your thumb to grab and pinch, and your pinky, together with your ring finger, provides grip strength. Your bones are 4 times harder than concrete. The strongest bone in your body is the femur. It can support up to 30 times the weight of a grown-up person. Even crazier is that our bones are made up of composite material, meaning they're both hard and elastic at the same time. The outer layer of your skin is thicker on your feet than on other parts of your body. The heart has its own electrical system and can continue beating even when it's disconnected from the body. The average lifespan of one eyebrow hair is 4 months. We spend 40% of our life with our eyes closed. Most of that time is when we're sleeping, but don't forget to count blinking too, or while driving. In an adult, the blood makes up 7 to 8% of the total body weight. About 55% of your blood is liquid plasma. The rest is red and white blood cells and platelets. They form clots and prevent bleeding. You can't swallow and breathe at the same time. The food you swallow and the air you breathe go down the same part of your throat at first. Only a bit deeper, the passage splits into the esophagus and trachea. There's a name for the growling sound your stomach makes when you're hungry. It's called barbarigmy. About 1/3 of all people can raise one eyebrow, left or right. It's a great way to send a playful signal to someone while telling a joke. But the ability to raise both eyebrows separately is much rarer. If you're not among them, that's because you cannot yet control and move the corresponding muscles. But this skill can be developed. Stand in front of a mirror. Hold one eyebrow with your hand and lift the other up and down, and then do the same with the other eyebrow. This will help you learn moving them separately. If you can lick your elbow easily or touch your thumb to your forearm, congratulations! You're among the minority of people, but some people bring flexibility to the next level. This condition is called hypermobility. It allows rare individuals to twist their bodies into weird positions just like a snake, putting their head between their feet, doing a back bridge, and all sorts of splits. But in some cases, hypermobility can increase sensitivity because such people have a larger medulla. This brain area is responsible for processing emotions. These fearless heroes can walk in the cold wearing only swimming trunks and feel cozy. They can stand in the snow barefoot and even swim in a river or an ice hole. Usually, this talent doesn't come naturally. People temper their bodies for years until they get used to withstanding extreme cold. Of course, they don't do it just to look cool or feel cool. Do you feel ticklish when you tickle yourself? Normally you wouldn't, unless someone else tickles you. It happens because of the cerebellum area of the brain, which monitors movements, predicts the sensations caused by your own movements. Then, it sends a signal to other parts of the nervous system to cancel these sensations. But some rare individuals can actually feel ticklish on their own. If you're not among them, touching a new texture that the brain doesn't yet recognize or using a scalp massager can help to excite your nerves and bring relaxation. Stand in front of a mirror. Open your mouth and try to roll the sides of your tongue up towards each other to make a U shape. About 65 to 81% of people are natural tongue rollers, and the majority are women. Some believed it's a genetic capability, but recent studies showed that people can actually develop this skill by practicing. Kachari Mudra is a term from yoga that means curling the tip of your tongue back into the mouth. Can you wiggle your ears intentionally? Congratulations! Around 22% of people on the earth are capable of wiggling one ear. As for moving both ears at once, only 18% can do that. Ear wiggling used to be a common thing for our distant ancestors. Scientists believe they could perform a variety of movements with their ears. The group of muscles responsible for wiggling is called the auriculars, and we mostly don't need them today. But some people claim that everyone can learn to move their ears. It only takes time and practice. Unfortunately, we still can't acquire this classy habit of twitching an ear towards a sound source as dogs and cats do.
So let me tell you a tale about tails. There are some cases of humans being born with a tail. There are about 25 confirmed cases known to scientists. Those born with tails, though, won't have any real benefit other than what the tailbone does for balance anyway. The tails have no function other than physically being there, as they have no bones. The tails only consist of nerves, vessels, and muscles. Now, do you find that you're a picky eater? Do you think that coriander tastes like soap? Or you can't stand pineapple on pizza? Really? Well, this may be due to what kind of taster you are. Up to 30% of people are considered super tasters and will experience different levels of enjoyment or disappointment from their foods. Food that is bitter to the super taster will likely be sweet to average tasters, who make up 40% of people. There are also 30% of people who are non-tasters and won't find anything too exciting. I guess you just have to develop a taste for that. The vast majority of people have brown eyes. About 79% of the world population share this eye color. Once, all humans only had the brown pigmentation, until around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, and I wasn't around then, when humans migrated to Northern Europe. A mutation occurred, helping the eyes to adapt to the change of light. Blue eyes became the most common of the mutated coloration, and all of them today can be traced back to one ancestor from Europe. His name was Chadwick Abernathy. His friends called him Chad, and he was a boulder mover at Stonehenge. Well, not really. Today, blue eyes make up around 10% of the human population. Amber and hazel eyes each take up 5% respectively. Gray eyes are up to 3%, and the rarest of eye colors are green ones, consisting of only 2%. Rarer still is heterochromia iridum, where both eyes are of different colors. It's inherited and also affected by other genetic factors. Only 1% of the human population have this incredibly rare attribute. Do you have a small hole in the front of your ear above the ear canal? This is a preauricular pit. During the first 6 weeks of a child's development, long before being born, the auricle, which is the external part of your ear, will develop. The preauricle pit forms when the auricle doesn't fully fuse. This occurs in less than 1% of humans. Although there's speculation that having this little hole is the remnant of gills that we once had from our seafaring ancestors, there is nothing solid to confirm this theory. If you can lick your elbow easily or touch your thumb to your forearm, congratulations, you're among the minority of people. But some people bring flexibility to the next level. This condition is called hypermobility. It allows rare individuals to twist their bodies into weird positions just like a snake, putting their head between their feet, doing a back bridge, and all sorts of splits. But in some cases, hypermobility can increase sensitivity because such people have a larger medulla. This brain area is responsible for processing emotions. 90% of people are right-handed and only 10% are left-handed. Yes, that adds up. But there's also a very small percentage of those who can use both hands equally well, including writing, drawing, and doing any tasks. Naturally, ambidextrous people account for only 1% of the entire population, which is about 70 million people. If you want to check whether you're one of them, try to write the same phrase with both hands, or draw a circle first with your right and then with your left hand. If there's no difference, congrats! By the way, these exercises are very good for balancing the hemispheres of the brain, regardless of which hand is your dominant one. And if you have 3 hands, well, that's a different video. Your fingernails grow faster on your dominant hand. In other words, if you write with your right hand, it's all right. And you'll have to trim those nails more often. Your fingernails also grow faster in the summer and during the day. Your skeleton will renew itself completely within 10 years, and yes, without surgery. An adult uses around 200 muscles just to make one step. So don't tell me I don't work out enough. Every minute, your body sheds more than 3,000 skin cells. It's almost 200,000 skin cells per hour and more than 9 pounds per year. Hey, it's the Shedding Skin Cells Weight Loss Plan. Ooh, sign up. But hey, don't worry, you still have about 300 million skin cells at any given moment. Plus, your skin completely renews itself every 28 to 30 days. The liver is the only human organ that can regenerate completely. As little as 25% of the original liver weight can get back to its full size. Some people can hear their eyeballs moving inside the eye sockets. Wow, that must be no fun. Unlike other parts of your body, your ears and nose never stop growing. Wow, that must be no fun. Your skin wrinkles if you stay in the water for too long, but not because it absorbs water. When your body's wet, wrinkled fingers and toes provide you with a better grip. You know, like when the treads on your car tires grip the road better when they're new. Your eyes are an amazing instrument. They can distinguish between 10 million different colors. Your brain uses more than 20% of your body's energy even when you're resting. When you're asleep, it still consumes almost as much power as when you're awake. It also burns around 330 calories per day at that. An adult person has about 25% of all their bones in the feet. Most of them are tiny but crucial. If these bones are out of alignment, so is the rest of the body. You breathe around 20,000 times a day, I've counted. Try not to stop. I actually set a personal best record today for consecutive days breathing, and I plan to top that tomorrow. Human bones are a real paradox. They're almost 5 times stronger than a steel bar with the same width, but can fracture on impact and are rather brittle. If a person has anosmia, also called smell blindness, they can't distinguish and detect smells, but they can still be smelly. Sorry. You start feeling thirsty when water loss is 1% of your body weight. More than 5% and you may faint. Water loss that's bigger than 10% of the body weight and dehydration can end a person, if you know what I mean. The strongest muscle in your body, based on its weight, is your jaw muscle. Yes, mine is way overdeveloped. At any moment, 50,000 cells in your body are getting replaced by new ones. Boy, that sounds like a company I used to work for. By the end of their life, the average person can recall up to 150 trillion pieces of information, except for where they left their car keys. Even if fingerprints are badly damaged, they still go back with their original pattern. Don't believe me? Hey, give it a whirl. Your brain's memory capacity is equivalent to about 4 terabytes on a hard drive, which is more than 8 million photos. People are the only living creatures that can naturally sleep on their backs. Even apes usually sleep in a sitting position, leaning on something. Don't wake them up. Your longest bone is your thigh bone, not your funny bone. and the tiniest one is in the ear. It's shorter than a grain of rice. Do you feel ticklish when you tickle yourself? Normally you wouldn't, unless someone else tickles you. It happens because the cerebellum area of the brain, which monitors movements, predicts the sensations caused by your own movements. Then it sends a signal to other parts of the nervous system to cancel these sensations. But some rare individuals can actually feel ticklish on their own. If you're not among them, touching a new texture that the brain doesn't yet recognize or using a scalp massager can help to excite your nerves and bring relaxation. Hey, you can give it a tickle test. If you want to check out the work of your vestibular system, try this simple trick. Stand on one foot and close your eyes. Most people lose balance at least during the first attempt. Your vestibular system includes many organs and systems throughout the body. Together, they allow your body to stay in balance in different positions. This system includes the inner ear and vision, which is why keeping balance is much easier in silence while your eyes are open. Can you wiggle your ears intentionally? Are you popular at parties for doing that? Congratulations! Around 22% of people on the earth are capable of wiggling one ear. As for moving both ears at once, only 18% can do that. Ear wiggling used to be a common thing for our distant ancestors. Scientists believe they could perform a variety of movements with their ears. The group of muscles responsible for wiggling are called the auriculars. Mostly don't need it today. But some people claim that everyone can learn to move their ears. It only takes time and practice. Unfortunately, we still cannot acquire this classy habit of twitching an ear toward a sound source, as dogs and cats do. Nor can we actually lend an ear to someone. They're challenging to remove and reattach.
There's more nerve cells and connections in your brain than there's stars in the Milky Way. If you decided to count them all, it'd take you 3,000 years. To make it easier for you, you have about 100 billion neurons in there. The brain can't actually feel pain. It does have a pain center, but it doesn't have pain receptors itself. When your head hurts, you can feel it because of the nerves, tissue, and blood cells around your brain. Your RAM, or working memory, is an essential thing that we need to perform almost any everyday activity, including conversations, surfing the net, and even petting your dog. Our strongest and emotional memories are often fake. The central memory gives us the confidence to believe that we remember everything, even though most of the details are made up in our heads. When we laugh, think, look at something, dream, move, or do some other activity with our body, small electrical and chemical signals run between neurons along those connections. And by that, neurons make and send more information than all the phones in the whole world. You're sitting somewhere outside and an insect lands on your leg. Your skin has sensory neurons and they quickly send the message to your brain at an impressive speed, 150 miles per hour. The brain sends back the message to your leg to shake the insect off very fast, and the speed that information travels is even bigger, 200 miles per hour. Our brain can store only 7 bits in its short-term memory. Don't even try to compare your brain with a phone's capacity, not even the one you had back in 2005. That's why you can't even learn a phone number by heart. Our short-term memory functions just like a chalkboard. You can get some information, but sooner or later, you run out of space. To check your working memory capacity, try this test. Ask a friend to write a list of 10 words and read it to you. Most people recall 7 or fewer items from the list. Synesthesia is a special and rare ability when people can taste music or hear colors. Only 1 in every 2,000 people has it. 5 basic senses are taste, touch, sight, sound, and smell. But people have more senses than that. Proprioception is when your body is aware of its parts and their position, even if you don't see them. Like if your arm is behind your back and you know it's there. If you were an octopus, you wouldn't know it. Because these creatures don't know their arms exist if they can't see them. Thermoception is your ability to sense temperature. Equilibrioception is a sense of balance. You also have nociception, which means you can feel pain. Then there's chronoception. That's how you can sense time passing by. There are even more senses found in the animal kingdom. but people don't have those. You can't recall a memory all by itself. When you're trying to think of one detail, like the color of the t-shirt your friend was wearing the other week, you'll remember some other details too. For example, the place where you saw him, things you were talking about. The hippocampus is the part of your brain that stores memories. It usually packs them together, including multiple small details. On average, taste buds last 10 days. One theory says déjà vu is some sort of a brain processing lag. Scientists think that it might happen when your brain is transferring information from one side to the other, and there's a split-second delay in that process. That means that your brain gets the same information twice and processes it as the event that happened before. It can create an illusion of falling. One of the theories that when you're dozing off, your brain sees the relaxing of your muscles as a sign you're in trouble and really falling. So it sends signals to the muscles to protect you by tensing up. You can physically see your nose, but the brain chooses to ignore it. Otherwise, it would stand in the way of your vision. Plus, it would be out of focus. Brain freeze is an annoying ice cream headache. That's how your brain tells you to slow down and maybe stop eating something that's so cold. People mostly need 7 minutes to fall asleep. This time gets shorter if you've just had a large, tasty meal. People used to dream in black and white much more than today. That's because they watched black and white TV. Around 12% of people can't dream in color nowadays. All your muscles relax at the same time right after you've fallen asleep. Your brain thinks you're about to fall asleep and sends quick signals to all of your muscles to awaken them. That's why it sometimes feels like you're literally falling. The hypnic jerk is a twitch you can experience while falling asleep. It's an abrupt muscle movement that comes during the non-REM sleep phase. If you sleep, it doesn't mean all your body sleeps. In fact, sometimes your brain has to work even harder when you're asleep. It needs to process tons of information, and reports usually take a lot of time. By the time you wake up, you'll have forgotten 50% of your latest dream. After 10 minutes, you won't remember 90% of it. When you blush, your stomach lining goes red along with your face. It happens because your sympathetic nervous system's causing an increased blood flow throughout the body. Your hair follicles have the same receptors as your nasal passages. That's why your hair can detect scents too. Sandalwood can help you develop that superpower. The nose definitely gets a good rest while you're sleeping. Amazingly, your sense of smell basically deactivates at night. You wouldn't even be bothered if there was a terrible smell in your bedroom. No comment. When you age, your brain is gradually reducing in size. By age 75, it's much smaller than at 30. And it starts shrinking by the age of 40. It happens to everyone, and it doesn't affect your mental strength in any way. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to tickle yourself. It's because your brain prepares the body for tickling and helps you avoid the typical laughing reaction. We recognize only purple, blue, green, yellow, and yellow-red colors. Everything else is a combination of these three. It's impossible to calculate how many of these combinations the human eye sees, because every single person has slight vision differences. But it's about 1 million combinations on average. You see? Heads up! Your skull isn't a single bone. It actually consists of 28 different bones, many of which are fused together to protect your brain. The strongest muscles in your body aren't in your arms or legs. They're in your head. The masseter is the main muscle responsible for chewing, and it needs to be the strongest for you to eat normally. And you know those muscles that allow you to move your ears? Those are temporalis, located above your temples. They also help you to chew your food. Now, we've got two really fast muscles. They control the eyelid closing. In fact, they're the fastest muscles in our body. Eyes are fragile and need protection, so the reflex that protects them needs to be as fast as lightning. These muscles can shut the eyelids in less than 1/10 of a second. Our body is made of stardust. Really. The more complex elements in our body can only come about through supernovas. The first stars were just gassy lumps that were drawn together and, at some point, started the process of combustion. This finally led to a nuclear reaction in its center. Stars that were right there after the Big Bang. were over 50 times bigger than our sun is now. Inside of them, there was a constant process of making the elements, and those large stars were burning their fuel faster. Most of the elements in the human body were formed in those stars over billions of years ago. So you could realistically say that part of you is immortal. Cool, huh?
Your dog doesn't actually have a stronger sense of smell than you do. People often talk about how dogs have a superior sense of smell, and this probably started when a researcher from the 19th century, Paul Broca, marked humans as non-smellers. No one ever provided sensory testing to support this theory, but people still believed in it for a long time. The truth is, different types of animals can identify different kinds of scents. There was an experiment done where human volunteers needed to track a scent. Researchers dipped twine in chocolate essence and then zigzagged it all across a grassy field. Volunteers weren't allowed to use other senses. For example, they were ear-muffed and blindfolded. They even wore thick gloves and knee pads. The conclusion they came to is that while we are not as effective as dogs, we can follow a scent trail and become way better if we practice. Interestingly, humans are more sensitive to certain smells compared to dogs, like fruit or flowers. This is because the evolution of dogs didn't require them to sharpen their sense of smell for these types of odors. A TV screen won't ruin your eyesight. At least, there's no evidence that looking at a TV screen can really hurt your eyes. It's the same for phone or computer screens. Looking at them may lead to eye strain or fatigue, but in most cases, it's nothing you can't ease with proper rest. That doesn't mean watching TV or staring at your phone for too long doesn't have negative consequences in other parts of your life, like reduced concentration and lack of socialization, among many other things. Being able to roll your tongue is not really a genetic trait, even though biology teachers often say this gift is based on a dominant gene. There was a study that showed 7 out of 33 twins who didn't actually share this feature. Identical twins share the same genes, which implies that they should share this trait too. But they don't, which means genes are most likely not the factor that decides if you'll be able to roll your tongue. And this myth still exists, even though it was debunked over 6 decades ago. You're going to catch a cold if you go outside with wet hair is yet another myth. To actually catch a cold, we need to have a virus inside of our body. Also, wet hair is not something that makes you more attractive to the various germs lurking around you. People mostly believe this is true because they A. heard it from their parents, and B. associate going outside with your hair being wet with getting sick because you're generally more exposed to germs when you're outside. There are no truly double-jointed people. Some individuals have certain parts of their bodies that are very flexible, so they can, for example, touch their chin with their elbow or bend their fingers backward. We often call these people double-jointed, like the secret is in them having an extra hinge somewhere. Well, it's not true. They have single joints, but they may have bones with oddly shaped ends, or their connective tissue may be very pliable. It seems the appendix, as in the organ, is useful after all, despite its poor reputation as a useless intestinal tube that pretty much goes nowhere. It seems the appendix is actually a reservoir for bacteria, but a good and helpful one. It stores microbes that assist our body when it's fighting certain problems and illnesses. In the early stage of our life, the appendix also helped us with the process of forming white blood cells, together with certain types of antibodies. Hey, do you know where the stomach is? Sounds easy, right? But it's probably not where you think. Most people believe it lurks somewhere in the area behind the belly button. In reality, it's a bit higher in the abdomen, sitting on top of the rest of the gut. Here's how you can find it. Look for the point where your lower ribs meet in the middle. Now go down approximately 3 finger widths, and then 3 to your left. Now you're supposed to be right over the center of your stomach. You don't have taste sections on your tongue. The tongue map probably showed up at the beginning of the 20th century because scientists found minute differences in how strong a taste had to be in different areas inside the human mouth to actually register. This study created a myth that each part of the tongue was responsible for different tastes. In reality, all types of taste buds are spread across all areas of your mouth, and they can detect each taste. This includes umami too, which is now accepted along with the usual four: sweet, salty, bitter, and sour. We don't only use 10% of our brain. We use way more, even when we're sleeping. Scientists tested this statement, and one of the methods they used was measuring activity in the brain while a person was performing various tasks. Results have shown we use most of our brain most of the time. The exact percentage varies from person to person, depending on what they're doing. Plus, it's not possible to monitor every single one of our brain cells. There are billions of them after all, so you can't know the exact number of active ones at any given time. When asleep, your frontal cortex, the part responsible for, let's say, higher level thinking, and certain areas that help you sense your surroundings, are still working. Humans don't just have 5 senses: hearing, taste, touch, sight, and smell. This idea originated from Aristotle, a famous Greek philosopher, who said that there was a sense organ for every sense: eyes for seeing, a tongue for tasting, and so on. But that was thousands of years ago, and he was missing the vestibular system, a key sense organ. The vestibular system is the apparatus of the inner ear that our body uses to stay in balance. Not every sense requires its own sense organ, just a different type of sensory receptor. For example, your skin alone has 4 different receptors for temperature, touch, pain, and proprioception. Proprioception is body awareness, which means that even if you move your arm behind your back, you still know it's there. Something an octopus, for example, doesn't know. So, saying we have 33 senses could be closer to the truth, not 5. These include senses of balance, temperature, thirst, and many more we need to survive. If you like cracking your knuckles from time to time, no need to worry. The whole idea that it increases risks for potential knuckle problems perhaps makes sense in the first place because that's what happens when you constantly put pressure on your joints over the years. The satisfying sound you hear happens because of bubbles bursting in the fluid that actually lubricates your joints, called synovial fluid. If you eat a big meal, you can still go swimming. You won't get cramps. The idea behind this misconception is eating a heavy meal will increase the amount of blood flow to your stomach. That way, blood won't go to your muscles, which will potentially cause cramps if you go swimming. The truth is, you probably won't feel that comfortable swimming immediately after eating a large meal, but you're safe to go if you really want to. It's even recommended to have a small snack that's rich in carbs not long before your swimming session. This will boost your energy. When you shave your body hair, you don't have to worry about it growing back darker and thicker, because this is a myth. You may believe there are some changes in the color, thickness, or growth rate of the hair. That's because after you shave, you give the follicle a blunt tip, which may look or feel darker and rougher than it was before. But that's just a perception trick. You'll see that once your hair grows in again, it will be the same as before. It's a myth that we lose a disproportionate amount of body heat through our heads. You may feel like that because our head, chest, and face are definitely more sensitive when it comes to changes in temperature. In reality, you'd be just as cold if you went out without a hat as if you weren't wearing pants. You probably feel like you're losing heat through your head because it's often one of those parts that we leave uncovered when going out. No need to worry if you wake up a sleepwalker. You're not going to seriously harm them by doing so. If you startle one, they can be quite disoriented and may have a confused reaction. Sometimes it's better to do that than to let a sleepwalker get up and start doing certain things that they shouldn't be doing while sleeping, like cooking or driving. Or you could just show them the way back to bed.
Only 30% of people actually know how to whistle, but it doesn't mean you can't learn if you aren't born with this skill. It's something you need to practice. You can try whistling through your lips first. That's the easiest way to do it. Wet and pucker your lips. Try to softly blow some air. Can you hear anything? Now, blow harder. Your tongue should be relaxed all the time. Once you learn how to whistle, you'll be able to adjust your tongue, jaw and lips to produce different tones. Whistling is the native language of the residents of a town in northern Turkey. Instead of words, people there whistle when they want to communicate. It sounds similar to bird calls. Try to raise only one eyebrow. Don't worry if it's not going well. You're not alone. Only less than a quarter of the world's population can do it. But maybe you can raise your right or left eyebrow independently of your other eyebrow, but not the other way around? There's a special muscle you use when you want to raise your eyebrows. If one side of your face is less connected or not connected to this muscle at all, you won't be able to raise both eyebrows. You can practice this skill too. Stand in front of a mirror and move one eyebrow downward. At the same time, focus on raising the other one. After some time, you'll be more aware of the muscles around your eyebrows. If you keep practicing, after a while, you'll be able to do it without helping your eyebrow with your hands. Place your hand on the table and bend your middle finger. Then, raise your little finger, index, and thumb. This was probably easy for you, right? But try to lift your ring finger. Not so simple anymore, huh? Most tendons running through your hand are not connected. The middle and ring fingers are the only ones that are linked. That's why you can't lift your ring finger without straightening and raising the middle finger too. About 1/3 of people can bend their thumbs backward beyond the typical range. The rest of the fingers have 3 bones, while the thumb only has 2. The first one starts at the tip of the thumb. It extends all the way to the knuckle. That's where the second bone starts. It goes to the base of your thumb. You have just one joint in your thumb. It's genetic. Some people simply have hypermobile thumbs that can be bent backwards at up to 90 degrees. This phenomenon is called hitchhiker's thumb. It doesn't affect people's health in any negative way. 8% of people have extra flexible feet. If you check textbooks, you'll see that the human foot is rigid. This makes walking on even terrains more efficient. But apes have bendy feet suitable for grasping branches as they climb trees and move through the treetops. But 1 out of 13 people has midfoot flexibility similar to these tree-dwelling apes. Such a flexible foot bends at the ball and halfway between the ball and the heel too. People with this feature have rather soft ligaments, unlike others that have feet with stiff ligaments that keep them rigid. There are people who can make a roaring sound in their ears. All they need to do is tense a muscle in their middle ear. Right above the auditory tube, there's a tiny muscle called the tensor tympani. It protects the cells of the inner ear from loud noises and potential damage. This muscle can also mask low-frequency sound, helping us hear high-frequency ones. The tensor tympani contracts a bit when we produce such sounds as coughing, chewing, yawning, and speaking. It likely prevents you from going deaf from all those noisy things going on in your own body. But some people can contract the tensor tympani whenever they want. When they do it, they manage to produce low rumbling in their ears that sounds similar to thunder. The noise muffling effect they get is similar to when you put your hands over your ears. Only they do it without using their hands. It's next to impossible to touch your shoulder with your palm. I don't mean just brushing the tips of your fingers against the shoulder. No, I speak about putting your left palm on your left shoulder, or doing the same on the other side. To perform this, you've got to be extremely flexible and pretty skinny. Most people find it impossible to put their fist in their mouth. To do that, you need to have a very big mouth and a small fist. A grown-up's hands are usually 7 to 8 inches long, while the average mouth is usually less than 2 inches across. There are people who can recall all their memories as clearly as if they had happened yesterday. Normally, even the memories we cherish the most may not be as accurate as we think they are. Our brain can alter them, change some details, or even the entire memory over time. And when we want to remember something, it may take time to recall the details. But some people have a rare ability to remember literally everything. You can give them a date and they will tell you what they did that day, what they ate for breakfast, what places they visited, everything in great detail. This condition is called highly superior autobiographical memory. There are fewer than 100 people that are known to have this ability in the entire world. About 1% of people on our planet are ambidextrous. That means they can use both hands equally well. In other words, they don't have the dominant hand. From the biological point of view, it means that both the right and left halves of someone's brain are almost symmetrical. This is also true for left-handed people, while those who are right-handed tend to be left-brained. Ambidextrous people tend to be talented in things like art, music, and sports. Leonardo da Vinci and Albert Einstein are some of the most famous ambis in the world. Ambidextrous people's brains tend to be symmetrical, and that's something they share with people who have the condition called synesthesia. Approximately 1 out of every 2,000 people can hear colors, associate numbers with personalities, or taste music. Synesthesia makes one sense trigger another. It's usually something that runs in the family, but you can still teach yourself synesthesia with the help of some tricks. For example, you can start by associating two different things together. For example, colors and numbers. Like the number 5 can be green. When you practice synesthesia, you become more aware of your senses. This process also boosts creativity and memory because when you start practicing it, you build new neural pathways in your brain. Cilantro is a herb that tastes like a pleasing mixture of citrus and parsley. Many people find it tasty, but to some individuals, the taste of cilantro is revolting. I don't speak about those who simply don't like it, but to some people, cilantro tastes like soap. That's a genetic condition. Such people have slight variations in their olfactory receptor genes, which is why they strongly perceive those molecules in cilantro leaves that are flavored like soap. These are genes not many people have. Interestingly, some areas where cilantro is very popular, like India and Central America, have a smaller percentage of people with such a condition. It might explain why this herb has become so well liked there. But soapy tasting cilantro is something almost 20% of those who live in East Asia complain about. Approximately 1/5 of the world's population can move their ears. Out of more than 440 people who took part in one study, 18% knew how to move both ears at once, while 22% could move only one ear at a time. People who can move their ears use weak vestigial muscles we got from a common ancestor humans and cats shared. This means that our distant relatives could probably make all kinds of movements with their ears in the past. Must have been useful. Monkeys, dogs, cats, and some other animals point their ears in the direction of sound they want to hear better. Perhaps our ancestors could do the same before this feature became redundant. You can try it, but you probably won't manage to wiggle each toe in turn. Only the little and big toes have individual muscles. The rest of your toes are controlled by one set of muscles, and while most people can move their big toes pretty easily, rare individuals can do the same with their little toes. About 5% of the population has a tiny hole above one or both ears. Half of the people who get born with this hole have it on both ears. Researchers believe this could be a remnant of fish gills.
It's been a long and hard day. You ran a few miles this morning. Then, you spent the whole day in the office developing a mobile app to improve sleep. In the evening, you went to a party with friends and came home only late at night. Finally, a warm bed. You jump on it, look out the window, and watch as the moon is getting replaced by the sun slowly. Then you realize that something strange has happened. One day without sleep. You get out of bed, and as you're looking at the clock, you get perplexed. It's been 6 hours since you got home. The temperature in the room was normal. You went to the shower, the light was dimmed. You definitely wanted to sleep, but something went wrong. You come to work and tell your colleagues that you feel unwell today because you didn't sleep all night. They reply that they had the same problem. You all feel tired. The work is progressing poorly. Everyone's mood is getting worse. You're so sleepy that you cancel all evening meetings. Finally, the working day ends and you leave the office. You call a taxi. The driver yawns and admits that he almost didn't sleep all night. He feels tired and runs a red light. Fortunately, he manages to avoid an accident. You get out of the car, go to the store, and see that all the people around you are tired. You return home, turn on the TV, and find out that people all around the world have experienced the same problem. For some reason, people just can't fall asleep. Nobody knows for how long this will continue, but scientists are already trying to solve the problem. It doesn't bother you much. You're exhausted, and you can fall asleep in a couple of seconds for sure. You fall on the bed, close your eyes, and just lie there. You hear all the sounds outside the window. You hear the neighbors arguing about something behind the wall. You hear your phone ringing. All the sounds annoy you. You put in earplugs, put on a sleeping eye mask, cover yourself with a blanket, and... now your heart beating and breathing prevents you from sleeping. 2 days without sleep. Angry and tired, you leave the house. People walk around with bags under their eyes. They also seem unhappy. You come to work and have arguments with your colleagues. The boss lets everyone go home early because it's impossible to work like this. You're walking around the city and you're terrified. Car horns, passers-by, they're not only annoying, but they also frighten you. The road to the house seems to be a serious test. You haven't slept for more than 48 hours. It causes a feeling of anxiety inside you, severe fatigue, and increased stress level. More than 7 billion people are experiencing the very same thing at this moment. In the late afternoon, a sleepy TV news anchor reports that all flights have been canceled. Also, it's forbidden to drive a car or any vehicle. All people should stay at home, but scientists admit they're already close to solving the mystery. 3 days without sleep. On TV, programs with meditation and hypnosis are on to make people sleep, but it just won't work. No more journalists and TV presenters. People are not able to work normally in such conditions. You drink a huge amount of coffee, but it's useless. All the malls and even convenience stores are closed. Sleepy people walk like zombies on the streets. Emergency news starts at noon on all TV channels. The host can't pronounce the speech clearly. He stammers, gets confused in words, but still says the main thing. Scientists haven't been able to find out the cause of global insomnia because they really want to sleep and can't work anymore. You hear it and realize that you don't care. Suddenly, the electricity goes out. All the factories and power plants are no longer working. Electricity is supplied offline and is turned off several times a day to save energy. People get furious. They go out into the street and demand an explanation. The protests have been going on for several hours. The shops are closed, but everybody still comes there for coffee. In just a few minutes, coffee disappears from everywhere. If you can't sleep, then coffee may help you feel cheered up. But it doesn't help. Cheerfulness lasts for only a few minutes. The protests end quickly as people get tired. They return home upset and exhausted. Some people who stayed on the protests are sure that whales are at fault for everything. Other people think that insomnia was always a part of our lifestyle. We just didn't notice it. You repaint the wallpaper at home in orange because you're sure this is the best color for sleeping. In fact, you and all people are mistaken. After 3 days without sleep, a person's thinking gets worse. Delusions and even illusions appear. You're sitting in your bed because you're afraid to step on the floor. The whole room is swarming with small toothy cats, and the bed is the safest place. 4 days without sleep. The cats disappeared, and you decide to make breakfast. For several hours, you try to cut tap water with a fork. And then you understand that you're not hungry. Your body doesn't want to eat anymore. You want to sleep unbearably. A special report is shown on TV. Several pterodactyls have landed on the street and are handing out free burgers to everyone. You don't want to miss such a party and go outside. There aren't many people around. Someone is laughing. Someone is talking to the air, and you're looking for... you've already forgotten what exactly. On the 4th day without sleep, the perception of reality is distorted. Your brain blurs the line between reality and imagination. 5 days without sleep. You're not at home because the concept of home doesn't exist. You, like other people, are losing touch with reality. Fortunately, there's no chaos on the street. Everyone is too tired and exhausted to create problems. The world now looks like a giant aquarium where people swim like small fish. memory is deteriorating. You don't remember who you work for and what you want from life. Instead, you try to catch up with a unicorn that's running through a green meadow. Other people also run with you, but then it turns out they are all just illusions. You don't understand what's going on, and you don't know anything except one thing. You're insanely sleepy. 6 days without. Oh, what is without? What's happening? Who am I? The human body can no longer function normally. To keep energy, you sit down on a bench and just wait for something for a long time. The strongest and hardiest continue to walk aimlessly around the city. Here's a guy who walks into a store and takes a lot of food from there. But on the way home, he loses all the stuff. Here's a girl jumping over an imaginary chasm. You watch as the sky turns purple and frozen lightning begins to grow from the ground. You spend several hours on the bench, or maybe a few seconds, or maybe a few years. The concept of time has disappeared. And then, at some moment, you finally manage to fall asleep. You just passed out on the spot. For some unknown reason, dreams returned to humanity. When this happened, people just started to lose consciousness. For the next 2 days, everyone sleeps. Rain, hot weather, cold, birds, nothing can wake you up. The whole world is sleeping the soundest sleep in history. Meanwhile, wild animals have filled the streets of some cities. Because of the accumulated garbage, the rat population has increased. Nature and the air have become cleaner. You wake up with a dry mouth. Your whole body hurts. You've got no energy. It's difficult to speak. Fortunately, you fell asleep near a fountain, so you immediately jump into it, and the cold water invigorates your mind. You recall what happened. People around are slowly waking up. You help them come to their senses. Human life is returning to its former rhythm. Scientists have found out that an unknown phenomenon deprived people of sleep for precisely 7 days. Now, everyone monitors the quality of their sleep. The mobile app you've been developing for several months becomes popular and makes you a millionaire. And stop right here. Yes, look, that's me, on a roller coaster. Totally unemotional, as if I'm riding some kiddie rides and not the fastest roller coaster in the world. But let's start from the very beginning. Rewind to 2 months ago. Oh, not again. I'm late for work for the 3rd time this week, and this time, I'm absolutely getting fired. Okay, I didn't really like that boring office job I had anyway. You know what I love the most? Roller coasters. So when I saw a job offer of a roller coaster rider, I called them immediately. And my new job was to test drive all the roller coasters and amusement parks around the world. The job was for 60 days, and I was going to ride roller coasters every day for the next 2 months. Day 1. I wasn't the only one getting the job. Turns out, they hired different people to test the roller coasters. Men and women, old and young, short and tall. We were supposed to just ride and then report how we felt. The job started in New Jersey with Kingda Ka, the tallest roller coaster in the world. It's 456 feet tall, which is taller than the Statue of Liberty and as tall as the Great Pyramid of Giza. Day 2. We moved south and rode the rides in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Virginia. Some of the rides weren't that fun, and I really need something more exciting. I'm feeling energetic and happy, and when I go back to the hotel after a long working day, I'm not tired at all. Can even do some sports later in the evening. Anyway, however fun roller coasters are for us, the brain, of course, sees you hanging hundreds of feet above the ground, not being able to predict which way you'll be taken next as a threat. When you face a situation that looks dangerous, your brain releases adrenaline that gives you a boost of energy to help you cope with that. It also helps you handle even minor stress. Just 3 days ago, I was pretty much overwhelmed with my life. I was worried about having to look for a job and a new place to stay. Now, I don't feel stressed anymore, and I ran 10 miles tonight. When you ride a roller coaster, your heart rate and blood pressure increase. Also, there's better blood circulation, which allows a great oxygen flow. Maybe that's why I feel so good. Whatever the reason is, those rides do magic to you. Day 8. Today, we spent a part of the day in Six Flags, the most famous theme park in Latin America. My favorite ride there was Superman El Último Escape. The ride reaches the speed of 75 miles per hour and has two 360-degree helices. Now we're done with North America and head down to South America, where we're going to spend a week. I don't even feel tired, even though I literally live in trains and planes now, traveling from one amusement park to another. And I still run those 10 miles every day, which is surprising. Also, we were given a booklet to study the history of roller coasters. Right, they were inspired by the 18th century Russian ice slides. Those were about 80 feet tall and had a 50-degree drop. But the first roller coaster was made in France back in 1804, and it was a wheeled wagon. Okay, not a big deal. Day 15. We've been to amusement parks in Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. As a professional, I noted that the catapult ride at Hope Hari in Brazil was pretty cool. It has a vertical loop where you first go forward and then, suddenly, backward. We're finally heading to Europe. I've never been there before, and now I'm about to test all the best rides in France, Spain, and many other countries. Sounds cool, but somehow I'm not that excited about it. Yeah, they're fun, but I'm getting a bit tired of it. Okay, maybe it's just jet lag. After South America, I noted the rides I used to love so much just stopped being that exciting. I don't feel energetic. It's the opposite. When the working day's over, I'm exhausted, like never before. My brain must have gotten used to something weird going on with me all the time, and the rides are getting pretty predictable. Also, my neck and back hurt a bit. All these rough movements put a lot of pressure on you, and while most of your body is tightened up to the seat, your head is not. Your neck does a lot of work supporting it and keeping your head steady while the coaster is taking you in random directions. So no wonder it started to hurt. Also, your brain and inner organs actually move a bit inside you. Just a random fact. So my body is starting to feel like it needs a break. But I have my contract signed and there are 6 more weeks ahead. Day 30. Europe was pretty fun. There were a couple of really cool rides. My personal European favorite was Der Schwur des Kernen in Hansa Park in Germany. It starts totally in the dark, where you ride listening to some epic music, having no idea what's coming next. I was even impressed, but I would have definitely enjoyed it more if it hadn't been my 300th ride that month. My back and neck still hurt. I even had to buy some ointment to feel better. It didn't help though. The next day, I'm back to business. At the hotel, the only thing I do is lie down, trying to fall asleep. Falling asleep has gotten really challenging. This is what adrenaline has done to me. I just chill and watch some movies. I wish I could stop the trip and come back home to get some rest after being dragged here and there all day long, but I can't. Next stop is Western Asia. Yay. 1 more month to go. Day 45. We've been to the UAE, Japan, China, countries with some of the best theme parks in the world that I've never been to before. We rode the fastest roller coaster in the world. It's called Formula Rossa, and it's in the UAE. It reaches the speed of 149 miles per hour, which is way more than any highway speed limit back home. 2 months ago, I would have been screaming like crazy if I had heard about such a chance. But now, I care more about not falling apart. I don't even remember the last time my neck didn't hurt. I feel like my head will fall off soon. Every time you're on the roller coaster, it becomes about 5 times heavier, and your poor neck is all that supports it. That's all because of gravity pulling you down towards the Earth's center. When you're on a roller coaster, the gravity is much higher than when you simply stand on the ground. And gravity is exactly what makes roller coasters work. They're designed in such a way to take advantage of it. On ascent, we accumulate energy. Then, on descent, the energy is released. So, the whole roller coaster ride is a combination of ascents and descents, accumulation, and then the release of energy. But as we ascend, the gravity force becomes higher. So, 1g is the normal force we feel when we stand on the ground. On average, a person can handle the force of up to 5g, and that's about what we experience on a roller coaster. While experiencing the gravitational force of 5g, you start to weigh 5 times more. So, if you normally weigh 150 pounds, on a roller coaster, you weigh 750 pounds, and your head will weigh 5 times more as well. So, yeah, that's why my neck hurts. I'll get through it. Just 2 weeks to go. Day 61. I'm finally home, and it's never felt so good. I've got my paycheck and the experience of riding all the best roller coasters in the world, which is cool. But I'm so tired that I only care about my bed and peace. On the bright side, I don't care about that tough time in life I've had. But even though I feel tired, it was pretty much a healthy trip, however crazy it sounds. I think I'll stay away from roller coasters for a while, though. I've had enough.
What? What's happening? You were so tired, couldn't wait for your face to hit that fragrant pillow. You could barely hold your head up at 9 p.m. Now you're just rolling around in bed, changing positions, everything's so annoyingly sudden. Is it better to cover your feet or leave them uncovered? Should you sleep on your back, front, left, or right side? There's some moonlight coming through your window, so you take a peek at the other bed in the room. Your friend over there is sleeping so deeply. Asleep after about a minute. So unfair. You're spending the night because tomorrow you're both taking a small trip to a nearby town. Of course, you'll have to get up at 5 a.m. Yay! Oh, and just look at the time now. Why can't you fall asleep? Why? Well, last week you and a couple of friends went camping in the woods, and your struggles were similar. You got very tired after a long day of carrying all your stuff, walking around, preparing food, hours talking by the campfire. Your eyes were half closed. You thought you'd fall asleep in seconds, but then, nothing. Eyes wide open, every little thing bothered you, and no sleeping position was right. So I ask you, why? The first night effect, that's why. That's what you call it when you have sleep struggles in a new place. Sleep is a great thing, but evolution has made it a bit inconvenient for us from time to time. While sleeping, the brain actually shuts off for a couple of hours. That leaves you pretty unprotected. You can't spot any potential danger or defend yourself if something happens. There are animals, like dolphins and whales, that developed a sleeping system where only one part of their brain rests at a time. The other part is awake and ready to roll. We have a somewhat similar thing going on in our heads. Not that there are any dangers in your friend's room, although, when you think about all that dust under the bed, who knows what's hiding under there? We have certain instincts that showed up a long time ago, back when our ancestors lived in caves and knew that if they slept like there was no tomorrow, there might not be. That's why they also knew it wasn't safe to sleep outside their cave. That's most of the reason behind this first night effect thing. If you sleep in your own bed, in a room you feel comfortable in, your brain is like, phew, okay, you're safe now. But if you go to a new place, nothing helps, not even a comfy bed, a silky pillow, or the fact that you're at your good friend's place. Your brain knows you're far away from your cave, so it can't relax and let you fully fall asleep. It's a little bit like with dolphins. One part of our brain is resting, but the other is carefully listening in case something unpredictable happens. Your brain won't bother you with this half the brain is sleeping and half not thing forever. When you spend 2 nights in a row in the same place, your brain is more likely to think, whew, it's safe here after all. Although that pile of dust still kind of worries me, and it'll probably let you fall asleep. Now, the first night effect is not that serious if you only experience it occasionally, but if you change locations really often, you could spend most of your time tired, unproductive, or facing some other issues. Our brain has some patterns that evolution gave it, but luckily, it's also quite flexible. You can trick it and help yourself overcome the first night effect. Since your brain is afraid of the fact that you're in an unknown space, you can make it more familiar and show your brain everything's okay. You might bring something you like with you. Maybe your favorite pajamas, your pillow, that soft blanket you wouldn't change for the world. Do you usually drink warm milk before going to sleep? Do the same thing at your new place. Help your brain recognize it's time to relax. Go to sleep at the same time you usually do. Have some exercise rituals before bed? Yeah, me neither. But whatever routine you have before going to sleep, do it at this new place too. If you're booking a room at a hotel, try to find one that has a bed similar to the one you have at home. If you usually sleep in a double bed, it may feel weird sprawled out in a king size. Or just bring along your favorite pajamas, it's cheaper. Nothing you do is guaranteed to help, but it's worth a shot. Side note, don't you get annoyed when you meet someone who can just sleep anywhere? It feels really great to lie down, tuck yourself under a warm pile of blankets, and whoops, sorry. Anyway, sleep's important. We literally need it to survive, just like we need food or water. We spend around 1/3 of our lives sleeping. Scientists still don't know all the reasons why we sleep, but here's what they've got so far. We sleep to store energy. 8 hours of good sleep can produce enough energy for us to have an energetic, productive day. Our body needs to restore itself while sleeping. Hair and nails grow, muscles repair themselves. All that and more happens while you sleep, no effort needed. Then there's brain function. If you put a book under your pillow during the night hoping your brain will somehow read it and be prepared for tomorrow's final, not gonna happen. But if you study hard and take in a lot of facts, a good night's sleep can definitely help you remember everything. A brown bat sleeps almost 20 hours a day, while a giraffe only sleeps a tiny bit, usually in mini 5-minute power naps. That poor giraffe doesn't know what it's missing. Cats definitely know how to enjoy life. They spend 2/3 of their life sleeping. Randy Gardner set the record for the longest period without sleep in 1964. He was 17 when he stayed awake for 11 days or 264 hours. Do not try this at home or anywhere. Peter Powers decided to set the opposite record and stayed asleep for 8 days straight. That's awesome. How come he didn't have to get up to use the bathroom? If you lie down in bed and fall asleep almost immediately, that means you're really tired and sleep deprived. Ideally, it should take you around 10 to 15 minutes to fall asleep. There are 2 specific times each day we feel really tired, 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's when we feel like taking a nap after lunch instead of getting on with our work. Show this video to your boss next time you're caught snoring in the office after your lunch break. We're actually the only mammals that delay sleep on purpose. And obviously the least cool mammals ever. Back in the day, only 15% of people dreamt in color. Now, 75% of us do that. Some folks think it's because our TVs are in color nowadays. Speaking of, we spend around 2 hours in dreamland every night. But if you want to remember your dreams, you should write them down right after you wake up. Wait too long and you'll forget all those awesome superpowers you had. Over the course of an average night, you might change sleeping positions around 20 times. Your favorite position can say a lot about your character. Lying on your back with your arms up by the pillow is called the starfish position. This type of sleeper tends to be a good listener and a selfless person who likes to help others. Also, this sleeper might let their guard down more easily. Then there's the free faller position, where you're on your stomach with your hands up by the pillow and your head turned to the side. Some say these sleepers don't take criticism well and tend to be pretty direct. Finally, the yearner is when you lie on your side with both of your arms stretched out in front of you. This type of sleeper is a bit complex, but also very open-minded. They're slow to make a decision, but they stick to it once it's made. Now, the kind and style of the jammies you wear to bed also says a lot, but we'll save that one for another video. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.